Welcome to the fantasy audiobook. Robot Girl Era. My robot girls are all world class. Chapter 41. The old man was very happy. You are here, Uncle Liang said calmly, his hands hanging down. Yes, we are here. You shouldn't have come. I have been looking for you for the past 6 months. The man was a middle-aged man wearing glasses. He looked gentle and refined. He was wearing a straight suit and a work permit on his chest with the words Longguo Special Security written on it. Behind him were 4 men in casual clothes. They looked much younger, tall and strong, with bulging waists, as if something was pinned on them. Xu Ziliang, stop running. Come with me. The middle-aged man sighed. Look at you now. You are so old. For half a year, you have been hiding your identity and trying your best. Isn't the mechanic still out there? Uncle Liang lowered his head and remained silent. The middle-aged man's words pressed heavily on his spine. It made him look even more hunched. But if I do nothing, Alin will blame me, and Kai Xiao will hate me too, right? I am not a good father, nor a good driver. The 4 young men took the opportunity to move forward and were about to take down Uncle Liang, but the middle-aged man waved his hand to stop them and shook his head at the 4 young men. Uncle Liang could no longer run away. Even if he could break through the blockade of the 5 of them, there were still people watching outside, and he could not escape. Alin won't hate you, Ziliang. If you continue to hold a grudge against the past, the child will be heartbroken. As for Kai Xiao, the middle-aged man had a complicated expression and said nothing, but just sighed. Uncle Liang looked up at the sky after the rain, tears flowed down with the sourness in his nose, and his clenched fist suddenly loosened. Wang Shoran, how did you find me? Didn't you go to the Knox rally? Your face was captured by the camera. The middle-aged man pushed his glasses and said helplessly, we have secretly monitored all major competitions in the past 6 months, but we didn't see you appear. I never thought that you would go to watch a primary competition like the Knox rally. He looked around and saw that there were more than just Uncle Liang living here, and he realized, oh, did you accept an apprentice? Not an apprentice, just a stubborn little fool and a silly girl. Uncle Liang pulled at his wrinkled apron and smiled tiredly. I didn't expect that you would catch me just for going out to watch a game. I'm so unlucky. Don't think about revenge anymore, come back with us. Wang Shoran walked up to Uncle Liang, patted Uncle Liang on the shoulder, and comforted him. I have food, drinks, and games to watch in there. The most important thing is safety. Those people can't reach me. How long will I be locked up? If you don't run away, you will be locked up for 7 or 8 years. You have been running away for half a year, so I'm afraid you will be locked up for 30 or 40 years. What's the difference between that and death? Wang Shoran smiled. Hey, at least I can still play cards with you. The sound of sirens echoed outside the furnace. 4 young special police officers put their right hands on their waists and looked alert. Uncle Liang knew he couldn't escape. He pursed his lips, looked at his old friend, and said solemnly, I'll go with you, but before I go, let me leave a letter for those 2 kids to tell them something. Okay, is half an hour enough? Enough. Uncle Liang wrote the letter in 10 minutes, pressed it under the shark doll on the Xingqian table, turned and walked into the kitchen, boiled the fish soup as usual, and covered the pot. Finally, he put all the keys and documents of the Wilucheng into a box and placed it next to the shark doll. He took off his apron, washed his hands, and walked calmly to Wang Shoran. Let's go. 2 special police came forward and handcuffed Uncle Liang. At the entrance of the Wilucheng, Uncle Liang looked back, the wind blew up the gray hair on his forehead, his eyes swept over the Wilucheng signboard and the central cabin one by one, took a deep breath as if to remember the smell here, and then turned and sat in the police car. In the evening, a truck stopped at the entrance of the Conscience recycling field. Su Nian and Xingqian got off the truck, one carrying a suitcase and the other carrying 2 large fish. Where do we unload the durian? The truck driver asked, pinching his nose. Well, just unload it at the entrance. Su Nian looked wooden and said mechanically. There were 1,000 durians, and he smelled the strong smell all the way. In fact, the smell of a single durian was not bad, but when a large number of durians gathered together and he and Xingqian were surrounded by this pile of durians, it was a bit painful for him. Only Xingqian enjoyed it. On the way from the fruit market to the furnace, she had eaten more than a dozen durians. Master, you really bought me 1,000 durians. Xingqian held a few durians without feeling prickly, and said with curved eyebrows, I am indeed the happiest robot girl in the world. I don't care whether you are happy or not. Sun Yan rolled his eyes. Anyway, you can transport these durians to the warehouse yourself. No problem, master. Xingqian patted her chest. Just leave it to me. She picked a few big and plump durians and stuffed them into Sun Yan. These are for Grandpa Liang. I picked them on the road. They are big, sweet, and super fresh. How do you know they are sweet? Sun Yan squinted. Oh, that's of course the intuition of the Durian King robot girl. Sun Yan, although I don't know whether Uncle Liang likes to eat durian, it is more or less the little girl's intention, so he carried the durian and 2 fish and walked towards the central cabin. Huh, why aren't the lights on? Usually at this time, the lights in the cabin are on. Every night when he and Xingqian come back from training and see the dim but very soft light, he feels relieved. Today, he didn't see it, and he couldn't help but have an ominous premonition in his heart. Uncle Liang, we're back. Uncle Liang. The cabin was quiet, and no one responded. Sun Yan's heart tightened and he quickened his pace. Uncle Liang has a heart disease, and he takes medicine immediately when he feels uncomfortable. And he was still with Uncle Liang at that time, so he could immediately perform first aid even if there was an accident. But when he took Xingqian to participate in the competition, he would definitely not be able to take care of everything. Pushing the door and entering the room, the faint aroma of fish soup was still lingering in the room. The surrounding furniture remained the same as before he left. Although simple, it was very neat and clean. The cabin was not big, and you could tell at a glance that Uncle Liang was not in the room. So he rushed into the kitchen next door, but didn't see Uncle Liang. On the stove was the pot Uncle Liang usually used to stew fish soup, and it was still warm when he touched it. Uncle Liang was not at home. But it was already very late at this time. Where would Uncle Liang suddenly go? Master, Grandpa Liang, Nox Champion Machine Girl is back. Xingqian ran into the cabin excitedly. With her unreasonable speed, she unfolded the car body and used the trunk to transport the durian to the warehouse in just 3 trips. Just looking at the pale Sun Yan in the cabin, her brisk steps gradually stopped, looked around, and asked in confusion, Master, why don't you turn on the lights? And where did Grandpa Liang go? Xingqian Pink Maid Costume Limited. The old man was so stubborn that he didn't know where Uncle Liang had gone. I don't know where Uncle Liang has gone either. Sun Yan scratched his hair in distress. In his impression, the stubborn old man didn't even use a mobile phone. He didn't even have a phone number. Now he couldn't find him, and he had no idea how to contact him. The old man had no friends, and he had no other entertainment except reading newspapers every day. Moreover, Uncle Liang especially liked to collect newspapers. He would store various newspapers in chronological order like stamp collecting. Master, will Grandpa Liang be captured by the bad guys? Xingqian hugged Sun Yan's hand, frowning and worried. Sun Yan's mouth twitched. It would be fine if Xingqian didn't speak. He was even more panicked when Xingqian spoke. Anyway, let's look for it at home first. He tried to suppress his worries and stay calm. Uncle Liang is a very careful person. If he really has to leave for a long time, he will definitely leave some information for us. If he is just leaving temporarily, we can just wait for him to come back at home. Master, I'll go search now. Xingqian nodded seriously and rushed to his room in slippers. No matter how you think about it, Uncle Liang can't leave the information in Xingqian's room. Sun Yan had no choice but to open Uncle Liang's room as soon as possible. The old man's room was even simpler than the living room outside. There was only a bed and a table near the window. On the table was a pot of flowers whose names and varieties were unknown. Next to the pot was a vertical photo frame with a photo of a family of 3. The father and son were wearing helmets, and the mother was smiling and making a victory scissors hand gesture. Sun Yan picked up the photo frame, but a photo suddenly fell out from the gap. The photo shows a heroic girl who is a mecha girl. She is tall and wears a fiery red racing suit. There is a badge on her chest with the big words Kai Shao engraved with flame special effects. A middle-aged man with long black hair is standing not far behind the girl. He holds a helmet under his arm and smiles flamboyantly. From his facial features, it can be identified that it is Uncle Liang. But Uncle Liang in the photo looks much younger. He is confident and calm, with the mature charm of middle-aged people, not like the old and hunched man now. Sun Yan knows that Uncle Liang is not very old, less than 40 years old, but he looks old, so Xingqian calls him Grandpa Liang. What exactly forced this confident and flamboyant man in the photo to be like this? Where are his family? Where is his mecha girl? Sun Yan's heart is full of questions. Master, Master, Xingqian's anxious shout came from outside, pulling Sun Yan's thoughts back. Grandpa Liang left us a letter and a box. Come out and read it. Sun Yan walked out of the room with the photo frame. Xingqian was standing in front of the table. On the table were stacked letters and a box that was originally used to store milk. I just returned to the room and found the box and this letter next to the shark doll, but I haven't opened it yet. Xingqian obediently pushed the letter and box in front of Sun Yan, sat down with his hands supporting his chin, blinking his big eyes waiting for Sun Yan to read. Sun Yan opened the letter, and inside was the unique and vigorous big characters of Uncle Liang. Stinky boy, when you see this letter, I should have been gone for a long time. I'm sorry to leave you and Xingqian without saying goodbye in this way. I went to watch the Nox rally. You performed very well. Apologize to Xingqian for me. I once said that her steering was very bad and she was a useless car. It hurt her heart, right? Sun Yan glanced at Xingqian. The little girl was listening carefully with a gentle light in her eyes. Don't worry about where I went. Anyway, I went to a place where I can enjoy my old age with food and lodging. It's just that it's a bit difficult to meet you. Even if you have won the Nox championship now, I still don't want you to become a racing driver. I hope you will stop here and live leisurely with Xingqian. But I know you will continue to climb forward and will not care about me, an old man. Then there are a few suggestions that you must remember. First, never make enemies with any Omnics unless you become an Omnic yourself. Second, don't trust your mecha girl if she has only signed a contract with you. Please always trust your mecha girl if she has signed a core imprint contract with you. Third, this world is big and much more majestic than you think. You and Xingqian cannot fight alone. You need more friends. Fourth, if your goal is to become world class, then I don't recommend you to join any club, just be self-reliant. Fifth, the machine girl is like a human being. In addition to self-reincarnation, she can also die from injuries. Above, maybe you don't understand the meaning of my suggestions now, but when you reach a certain stage, you will definitely understand. If you don't understand it all the time, I might be happier, which means you can live in peace. The box contains all my belongings. You can sell the reincarnation field, or go to No. 178 Haitang Street, Tianyuan City next door to seek refuge with my friend, and give him the photo on the table in my bedroom. Finally, don't come to me. If you dare to come to me, I will beat you up. By the way, there is fish soup in the kitchen. Boil it for another 7 or 8 minutes on medium heat. The taste is just right. Boil the fish head separately for a little longer. Xingqian likes to eat it. Uncle Liang. The letter ended here. Sun Yan took a deep breath, feeling choked up. He knew something must have happened to Uncle Liang, but the letter did not reveal any relevant information. Obviously Uncle Liang did not want them to get involved. Woo 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 wow. Before he could come back to his senses from his chaotic thoughts, Xingqian's wailing like a signal had already filled his ears. He lowered his head and saw that the originally quiet little girl had been crying with snot and tears, and her eyes were swollen like 2 peaches. Woo woo woo, master, it's all my fault, I'm a bad mouth, Grandpa Liang must have been captured by the bad guys, woo woo woo. Xingqian wiped his tears and patted his head with his other hand. If I didn't say that, Grandpa Liang wouldn't have been captured by the bad guys. Quote. Sun Yan quickly grabbed Xingqian's hand. This girl was stupid to begin with, and her hands were very strong. If she was hit a few more times, she would be even more stupid. Uncle Liang was not taken away by the bad guys, he left on his own. He helped the girl wipe the tears from her face and smiled reluctantly. Besides, when you said that, Uncle Liang had already left home, so you can't be blamed for this. Really, really, really. Sun Yan's eyes were red, and he could only raise his head slightly to prevent Xingqian from seeing. Master, if you lie to me, you will turn into a little pig. Sun Yan. Master, are we going to find Grandpa Liang? Of course we should go. Sun Yan hugged Xingqian, his eyes gradually calmed down. Although Uncle Liang emphasized not to look for him, Uncle Liang was his savior. When he first came to this world, facing the terrible temperature difference between day and night and about to freeze to death, it was Uncle Liang who dragged his tired body to carry him, a 1.85-meter tall strong man, back. The fish soup that night saved his life and allowed him to continue wandering in this new world. Without Uncle Liang, how could he and Xingqian be now? In the past few months, Uncle Liang treated him as his own son and spent all his savings to buy modules for Xingqian. People should not forget their roots. It's just that how to find Uncle Liang and when to start looking for him still needs to be carefully considered. Sun Yan's eyes were fixed on the address on the letter. The most urgent task was to find out what happened to Uncle Liang. And this friend of Uncle Liang might be an insider. After the money was sold, the owner of the house was forced to sell it. Sun Yan opened the box and checked the contents. The title deed, business license, key and a bank card with a password attached to the recycling yard. The recycling yard was Uncle Liang's hard work. Sun Yan did not plan to sell it, but he would definitely not have time to manage it if he left Zhongcheng. Fortunately, there were more than one recycling yard in Zhongcheng. He could just apply to the municipal government to suspend business. He was not going to touch the things in the box. Uncle Liang had helped him and Xingqian a lot. He still owed Uncle Liang money for a module. How could he use Uncle Liang's assets? He would return all these things to Uncle Liang after finding him. Xingqian, I'm going to the municipal government now. How about you stay at home and look after the house? Sun Yan touched Xingqian's head, with some worry in his eyes. He wondered if it would be unsafe to leave Xingqian alone at home. After all, Xingqian was just a weak girl, but she couldn't go back to the furnace without someone watching her at night. Master, it's already 8 o'clock. Is the municipal government still working? Xingqian blinked her big eyes and subconsciously wiped her snot with Sun Yan's sleeve. They get off work at 10 o'clock. Sun Yan smeared his snot back on Xingqian's face. The government departments in this world are what he admires the most, and they can be regarded as role models in the industry. When Uncle Liang took him to apply for an ID card late at night, he saw dozens of work clothes and big bald heads in the office looking at him, and anyone who saw him would feel distressed. Okay, Master, go. Durian and I will miss you. Xingqian raised a big durian to Sun Yan. A strong smell suddenly spread, raping someone's nose. Sun Yan, but is it really okay for you to be alone? What can be the problem? Xingqian looked at Sun Yan strangely, and soon read his thoughts from Sun Yan's worried eyes. Master, are you afraid that bad guys will rush in and grab my durian? Xingqian put his hands on his waist, and a fierce smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. This genius robot girl will tell them not to touch the durian with 1 hand or 2 feet. After speaking, Xingqian raised his foot and stomped on the ground. Boom! Then he picked up the durian and knocked it against his head. With a pop, the durian broke. Sun Yan only felt his head buzzing, and the whole house was shaking, almost knocked over. What are you doing late at night? Don't your family members rest? Are you sick? A few roars came from the apartments around the furnace. Sun Yan looked down and saw that Xingqian's feet had sunk into the ground, leaving a pit with spider web-like cracks. What a tough guy. I forgot that Xingqian looked harmless on the surface, but in fact, he was extremely powerful. Then I'll go. Sun Yan swallowed his saliva. He left early and came back early, because he was afraid that if a thief came to his house, Xingqian would beat him to death with 1 punch. Although the Nox rally has ended, the impact of this competition is still fermenting, especially the video of Sun Yan and Xingqian's cornering, which was made into a collection and became an important material for collective research by coaches from various clubs. The traditional method of decelerating cornering began to be questioned. People began to pay attention to this method of cornering that relies on tire locking to correct the body. Of course, not everyone keeps up with the times. Some people think that Sun Yan and Xingqian's cornering method is simply sensational, contains uncertainty and danger, and does not recommend other drivers to learn. As for the operation of Sun Yan and Xingqian overtaking in the tunnel, it is even more controversial. Some racers regard it as the Bible, while others sneer at it, thinking that Sun Yan is an out-and-out madman and a desperate man who does not care about the safety of himself and the girl. VVC Club. I have reminded you, be careful of Sun Yan and Xingqian. Li Yong leaned on the sofa with his legs crossed, picking his teeth with one hand and watching short videos with the other hand. Jin Jungtai and Yunbao sat opposite, lowering their heads like defeated roosters. Captain, I underestimated the enemy. Tisk, forget it, even if you take me seriously, you can't catch up with me. Li Yong glanced at Jin Jungtai and said with a smile, next, we will take it step by step and gradually enter the Panlongshan track. You have to learn Sun Yan's skills. Yunbao is an excellent machine girl. It should not lose to Xingchen. The main reason is that you are not a good driver. Jin Jungtai, Captain Li likes to say the most devastating words in the most gentle tone, and the effect is very good. Sun Yan and Xingchen's goal is, it must be a provincial competition. You will definitely meet again. Don't lose next time. Quote. Yes, Captain. This is the module I prepared for you. Li Yong took out a box and pushed it to Jin Jungtai and Yunbao. The module in the box exuded a purple glow. It was obviously an expensive purple-grade module. Li Yong understood the principle of a big stick and a sweet date. Recently, the newcomers in the club are not easy to lead. These things have to be taken care of by him as the captain. Just thinking about it makes me tired. Captain, this is. Jin Jungtai and Yunbao were full of surprise. I thought that the bonus and reward were gone after winning the third place, but I didn't expect Li Yong to give them a purple module as encouragement. This is the Vortex Dragon number 1 module, which can increase acceleration, but will reduce collision resistance and endurance. Yunbao's performance is too balanced, with both advantages and disadvantages. It is very suitable to use Vortex Dragon number 1. Train well. Quote. Li Yong patted Jin Jungtai's shoulder and stood up, preparing to go back to his room. Captain, I heard that you are going to participate in the national competition. Well, you are well informed. Li Yong smiled. Captain, be careful, Jin Jungtai said solemnly with admiration on his face. Don't worry, you won't die with the comet. Li Yong waved his hand perfunctorily and walked into the room, closed the door, but leaned against the door and let out a sigh. The first track of the national competition, the Breath of Death Greven Desert Track, is 4,000 kilometers long. It takes more than 10 hours to run in the dry and scorching desert from dusk to dawn, challenging various complex and dangerous natural environments, testing the driver's perseverance and the endurance of the girl, and there are also a group of wolf-like players fighting with you. As the chief of the VVC club, he carries the hope of VVC, and the pressure he faces can be imagined. Li Yong. Comet's angry complaint came from the toilet. How can someone change 5 pairs of underwear a day? Trademark leaking urine. Hee. Hearing Comet's roar, Li Yong relaxed all over. With Comet around, he suddenly felt that the pressure was nothing. SSC Club. Wang Yiming finally felt much better when he saw the new robot girl. Zhu had terminated the contract and left SSC. Fortunately, his father was rich and immediately got him a better robot girl. The robot girl was named JF-12, named Hurricane, with a transfer price of 10 million. She was poached from another club and had participated in the Knox Rally and was qualified to continue to participate in advanced competitions. In his father's words, with this robot girl, he could win the first place in the Knox Rally with his eyes closed, and the provincial track was not much different. From today on, you are my master, please give me more advice. Quote. Hurricane, wearing a snow-white racing suit and light blue curly hair, stretched out her hand. She was tall, 1.85 meters tall, half a head taller than Wang Yiming. At this moment, her face was full of gentle smiles, and just looking at this smile made people feel good. Wang Yiming held Hurricane's soft hand, and the last affection for Zhu disappeared at this moment, and a sneer appeared at the corner of his mouth. Zhu, do you really think I will die if I leave you? He was secretly proud of himself. A robot girl of Zhu level will definitely participate in the provincial competition, so they will have a chance to meet each other in the future. At that time, he will make sure that Zhu knows what it means to be out of reach. Oh, and there are also Sun Yan and Xingchen. This time he will train new technologies with Hurricane, and follow Sun Yan's path to make Sun Yan have no way to go. When they are on the Panlongshan track, they will definitely let Sun Yan and Xingchen know what a top racer is and what it means to have the power of a boy's skill for more than 10 years. Smart Island. In a magnificent underground space somewhere, a huge crystal wall is filled with dense smart cores. They are classified according to different models. These smart cores are all robot girls that have been activated but not yet fully born. Although they have not yet been born, they are already able to receive knowledge from the outside world. The screen in front of the crystal wall is playing recordings of various large-scale competitions in the past 10 years. The recently concluded Knox Rally is also among them, and the footage being played at this moment is a slice of Sun Yan driving the star through a fancy turn. Every time Sun Yan turns, the intelligent cores on the crystal wall will flash at a high frequency. Most of the mecha girls can only receive fragmentary information, and they will forget a lot of it, but some of the mecha girls' intelligent cores are always on. They seem to be born with endless energy, recording the scenes of various competitions frame by frame, and disassembling the technical movements of the mecha girls and drivers in the intelligent cores. Of course, there are times when they don't understand, then they will put the driver or remember the name of the robot girl. Among them, a black intelligent core carefully remembered Sun Yan's name. Tianyuan City, underground black market. In a room filled with various rusty parts, discarded modules, and filled with the smell of engine oil, only the light of the TV flickered in the darkness. The TV was very old, but the size of a notebook. The color of the picture on it was a little distorted, and there were traces of damage on the edge of the screen. A robot girl was curled up in front of the TV. The gray shoulder-length curly hair covered half of her delicate face, revealing only one amethyst-like eye. She stared at the picture on the TV without blinking, with complex emotions flowing in her eyes, envy, anger, pain, and so on. The screen showed Kun Kun interviewing Sun Yan. Sun Yan was touching Xingqian's head. My Xingqian will definitely become a world-class robot girl. Tisk. So disgusting. The robot girl spat with disdain. But her eyes were unconsciously focused on Xingqian's face full of happiness. For some reason, she took out a dirty mobile phone from under the bed and took a picture of Xingqian's happy smile in front of the TV, staring at this face for a long time. After watching for a while, she wanted to delete the photo angrily, but after rubbing her fingers on the phone for a long time, she still cut out the album. She sat down against the wall dejectedly, hugged her knees and looked at the ceiling. Her eyes gradually became empty, like a broken puppet. The room was very quiet until a rough shout came from outside. Hey, Zidian, it's your turn today. Oh, the machine girl responded and quickly stuffed the phone under the bed. Then she stretched out her scarred hand to turn off the TV, put on her patched clothes, and dragged her tired body out of the room. After a long time, the family was busy. It was almost 10 o'clock when Sun Yan came back from work. He was shocked to find Xingqian when he got home. He looked everywhere and finally found Xingqian sleeping in the pile of durian in the warehouse. You are worthy of being the durian king. Sun Yan sighed helplessly. He even had to protect his durian when he slept, and even slept on a bed made of durian. He could only be thankful that Xingqian liked durian more than stinky tofu, otherwise the scene might become difficult to end. The next day, Sun Yan was awakened by a knock on the door outside the furnace. He stood up and saw that Xingqian next to him had changed his posture and was lying on the pile of durian with his butt sticking out. The delicate and soft face was rubbing against the scratchy durian. If it was a normal girl, she would have been disfigured. Bang, bang, bang. Is anyone there? Is Sun Yan here? Yes, yes, yes. Stop knocking, Sun Yan shouted. Xingqian, who was standing next to him, woke up instantly, did a backflip and landed on the ground. He was ready to attack without even opening his eyes, and yelled in a dazed and childish voice, "Ah! Die, durian thief!" Sun Yan. In order to avoid being mistaken for the durian thief and being killed by a headbutt, he had to go around Xingqian and open the door by sticking to the wall. The sponsor, who was wearing a pink outfit and sunglasses and showing a big golden tooth, the owner of the module shop, and the yellow-haired Zhongkai from the Tengyu Club, stood side by side at the door. Hey, our king of Nox is out. The sponsor waved his hand. Mr. Su, I really didn't recognize the great man last time. I came here today to apologize to you. The owner of the module shop was smiling and holding a box in his hand. Zhongkai was embarrassed and dodged his eyes. He wanted to say something but couldn't. He just sighed dejectedly. His injuries had healed, and all his money was spent on treatment. Why are you here so early in the morning? Sun Yan glanced at Zhongkai. This guy was quite pitiful. He was a clown tricked by YU 786, so he didn't say anything sarcastic. Sun Yan, I'm here to discuss sponsorship with you. The sponsor uncle tried to pout to the bodyguards behind him. The two bodyguards came up and opened the two black suitcases with neatly stacked banknotes. 2 million. The sponsor made a, yeah, gesture and took out a pink racing suit and handed it to Sun Yan. As long as you wear this racing suit in future competitions, the 2 million will be yours. I will double the money for every advanced competition you win until the provincial competition. The sponsor's generosity is certainly heartwarming, but Sun Yan is a driver with integrity and dignity. Besides, this racing suit has been upgraded. The Hello Kitty is gone, and it has been replaced with his daughter's headshots from various angles. Last time I wore that racing suit at the airport, I was already considered a Lolita control. What if I change into this one? Mr. Qian, this is not a question of money. The main thing is that I want to wear a normal racing suit. Sun Yan pushed the racing suit back and politely refused. Besides, there are too many photos of your daughter. However, before he finished speaking, Mr. Qian bowed deeply to Sun Yan and said earnestly, Mr. Sun Yan, I know you don't care about this money, but I still want to beg you to accept my sponsorship. His voice was hoarse and distorted, with some sobs. My daughter, her dream is to become a driver, but she has grade 4 heart failure and can't be cured at all. She can only lie in bed every day and it's difficult to move. The two bodyguards next to him have begun to wipe their tears. Sun Yan pursed his lips, and his heart sank. His eyes fell on the smiling little Lolita in the racing suit. No wonder there are only big head stickers, and she looks very weak. I guess her current situation is not good for taking full body photos, right? This world is very good at recovering from trauma and even reattaching broken limbs, but the medical level of difficult and complicated diseases such as heart disease and cancer is about the same as in the previous life. If Mr. Qian's daughter suffers from grade 4 heart failure, she probably won't live long. I hope you can take her around to see the track. Although she can't go to the track by herself, it will be the happiest thing for her to see you walk on the track wearing clothes full of her photos. Mr. Qian bent his spine and buried his head deeply. In Sun Yan's original impression, this was a lively and cheerful uncle, with a broad mind and a generous spirit. It was difficult for him to equate the humble and sad uncle now with the uncle before. He is a father. For his daughter, he can give up dignity. Uncle, why do you only make racing suits for master? You don't make one for me. Xingqian poked his head out from beside Sun Yan and said angrily, Master must be angry and refused because you didn't make one for me. Such a cute racing suit, how can you not give it to a genius girl like me? Mr. Qian looked up in astonishment when he heard this. He wiped his nose and tears and looked at Sun Yan blankly. Mr. Su, is that true? Yeah, Sun Yan nodded. There is no place for my girl, you are a bit partial. Surprise is coming, it was too sudden. The sponsor looked around excitedly at the bodyguards around him and said incoherently, I am mainly afraid of offending your daughter, because this racing suit, to be honest, from a design perspective, it is really not very beautiful, so No, I think this racing suit is very beautiful. Xingqian poked Sun Yan's waist. Isn't it, master? Sun Yan stared at the smiling little loli on the racing suit, his eyes full of tenderness. Yes, it's very beautiful. This racing suit carries the love of a father, how can it be said to be ugly? It is the most handsome racing suit in the world. Mr. Qian, if you are willing to provide a racing suit for my daughter, I am willing to accept your sponsorship. Yes, of course. The sponsor wiped the snot and tears from his face, turned his head and shouted to the bodyguard, what are you still standing there for? Drive the truck over. Truck, what the hell? Sun Yan and Xingqian were full of question marks. After a while, in the stunned eyes of Sun Yan and Xingqian, two bodyguards drove the truck full of racing suits to the intersection. It was not clear how many sets there were, but they were enough for Sun Yan and Xingqian to wear for a century. Mr. Sun Yan, you and your daughter can wear these racing suits at will. They are all high-end styles that automatically vacuum and modify the body shape. You can wear one set a day and throw it away. If you are done wearing them, just call me and I will send someone to send you 2 more trucks. Sun Yan at Xingqian. I was a little touched, but the touch gradually disappeared inexplicably. Sun Yan originally wanted to reduce some sponsorship fees for the sponsor, but at this moment, this idea disappeared instantly. The sponsor left happily. Sun Yan and Xingqian stared at the pile of racing suits for a long time. Mr. Sun Yan. The owner of the module store wiped the cold sweat from his forehead and came forward with a smirk. However, Sun Yan rolled his eyes and ignored him and walked up to Zhang Kai. The boss looked at Xingqian pitifully again. Xingqian was weighing 2 durians and looking at the sky, whistling an inexplicable tune. Hey, Zhang Kai, why are you looking for me? Sun Yan stared at Zhang Kai expressionlessly, without any warmth in his eyes. The old man was so angry that he was not happy. Do we need to guess why Zhang Kai came? Isn't it because he came to him to feel regretful and wanted to use their past workplace feelings to pull him back to the Tengyu Club? Zhang Kai was sticking his butt out, and he knew what shape of shit he was going to pull. Sun Yan secretly complained in his heart, but Zhang Kai in front of him took a deep breath and buried his head. Sun Yan, I'm here to apologize to you. I'm sorry. Sun Yan was stunned. He really didn't expect that Zhang Kai's first sentence would be this. I was wrong before. I know it's wishful thinking to get your forgiveness. You are a pure racing driver, but I am not. I race to make money to pay off my debts and keep my module factory going. So, Sun Yan raised his eyebrows, still not in a good mood. Now I have sold the factory and the club, and all the debts have been paid off. Now I have some money left, which should be enough to shoot a machine girl. Zhang Kai said what was in his heart, and the whole person became a lot more relaxed, with a relieved smile on his face. I came to you today to apologize and say goodbye. I plan to leave Zhongcheng and go to other cities with more developed racing. U786 has terminated the contract with me. I feel that she will come back to you. You must be careful of her. At this point, Zhang Kai's face has become gloomy, and he gritted his teeth and said, after contracting her, I did get carried away and didn't resist the temptation. The flow of the funds were basically taken away by her. She is very resourceful and good at disguise. If she comes back to find you, you must not lose the big picture while picking up sesame seeds. Quote, U786 has come to find me. Zhang Kai widened his eyes. Then you. Hee. Sun Yan curled his lips. Do you think everyone thinks with a lower body like you do? That's right. A small head controls a big head of trash. Xingqian squinted at Zhang Kai. Also, I am a durian, not a watermelon. That's right. Zhang Kai smiled bitterly. I think too much. I apologize to you and your daughter again. Zhang Kai left. Sun Yan and Xingqian watched Zhang Kai leave. When he came, the former club owner was trembling, and when he left, he seemed to have unloaded a heavy burden. Master, have you really forgiven this yellow-haired chicken coop head? Xingqian pulled Sun Yan's sleeve. How is that possible? Sun Yan squinted his eyes and touched his chin, with a sinister smile on his face. Let this kid be full of hope first, let him regain his confidence and spend money to become a racing driver, and then when we meet him on the track in the future, we will knock him away, and his heart will definitely be broken. Ha ha ha. Oh, as expected of a master, I like it. Ha ha ha. The owner of the module store next to him has already backed out. He is really crazy today. Isn't it good to stay at home? He has to come to provoke these 2 evil stars. However, he just raised his leg and was immediately locked by 2 eyes. Come and go as you like. Do you think this is a remelting ground? The boss wiped the sweat from his cheeks, thinking that this is a remelting ground. Since he had been targeted by Sun Yan and Xingqian, he could only bite the bullet and rush forward. Mr. Sun Yan, Miss Xingqian, you should still remember me, right? You came to the module store to ask me to invest. Ahahaha, I was short-sighted at that time and didn't recognize you as the first in the Bana Valley training match. Now I agree to invest in you. Tisk, who cares? Sun Yan snorted coldly. But master, this uncle is holding a purple module in his hand. Even if it is purple, ahem, boss, please come in and talk face to face. When Sun Yan turned around again, his face had changed. Although he had just received a sponsorship of 2 million from the sponsor, the purple module also started at 500,000, and could be sold for up to 8 million depending on its applicability, which means that the owner of the module store planned to give them at least 500,000 for free. This money was still rare for Sun Yan. After a while, the 3 of them sat down in the cabin. Xingqian casually opened a durian and divided it into 3 parts. Then he poured 3 bowls of iced black tea and placed them on the table. The conditions are relatively simple. We don't have that kind of good tea at home. If you don't like it, you can add some salt. Sun Yan said with a smile. Durian and iced black tea, is this a weird way to entertain guests? If the cabin didn't look like a bear house, the boss thought Sun Yan and Xingqian might be chasing him away. After hesitating for a long time, he finally pursed his lips and drank a sip. Iced black tea. Don't mention it, it feels really different to put it in a bowl and a bottle. Well, Mr. Sun Yan, I watched your game, it was very exciting, I think your future is limitless. The shop owner smiled and opened the box, and the purple light became more intense in the cabin. This is a structural module, called Black Scale, which can change Miss Xingqian's car model and improve collision resistance and stability at the same time. The disadvantage is that the speed and cornering will decrease a little. Sun Yan stared at the module, and rows of information appeared. Collision resistance, +7. Stability, +5. Acceleration, -3. Curving, -6. The grade of the module is determined by the difference between positive and negative attributes. Greater than or equal to 0 is a purple module. Greater than or equal to 10 is a gold module. For example, the blue storm that Sun Yan had seen before, corner, +20 acceleration, -13 stability, -8 anti-collision, -2 charge, +3 the positive and negative attribute difference is 0, it is a purple module. Now the hurricane module on Xingqian, corner, +8 endurance, +4 acceleration, -5 charge, -5 stability, -3 anti-collision, -3 the positive and negative attribute difference is -4, it belongs to the blue grade module. The positive and negative difference of Black Scale is +3, so even if the added attribute is very small, it is a purple module, which is the kind of general module that cannot be picked up, and is very suitable for some mecha girls to adjust the attributes slightly. Therefore, how to choose the right module is a science. Most pilots and mecha girls can only know whether a module is suitable for them by trying it themselves. It is not the case that the higher the grade, the more suitable it is. The Black Scale module in front of you is not as useful as the Hurricane module for Xingqian. The modules will be tested after they are produced, and the approximate total attribute difference can be known, but the increase or decrease of specific attributes cannot be directly seen. But Sun Yan only needs to take a look to know everything. Boss, this purple module of yours is the cheapest one, right? Sun Yan knocked on the table carelessly, indifferent to the fragrant purple module, but Xingqian next to him was already eager to move, his eyes shining. Really no future. Sun Yan sighed helplessly in his heart. His mecha girl has suffered too much, and she is curious about everything. Ah, Mr. Su, how can you say that? This is the best purple module sold in our store. The boss straightened his back with a guilty conscience, and a drop of cold sweat flowed down his forehead. Of course he couldn't take the expensive module to give away. The blue one was not good enough, so he could only take the cheapest purple grade. But modules are just like gambling on stones. Sun Yan and Xingqian racing are very good, and he admires them very much, but he doesn't believe that a layman like Sun Yan can see the value of a module. Hehe, the total attribute difference of your module is probably only about +3, and the attributes that are improved are very few. Besides, the module that reduces acceleration and cornering attributes, only girls who play in competitions will buy it, right? The fat boss's face was covered with more and more cold sweat. His back was soaked. In Sun Yan's oppressive gaze, he finally lowered his head. You are knowledgeable, I admit defeat. The fat boss sighed. This purple module is indeed cheap, you can buy it for 510,000, but the performance is still good. Don't tell me that. Sun Yan was too lazy to argue, leaning back in the chair, shaking his legs like an old man. If you want to talk about investment and cooperation, you have to show your sincerity. If you keep stinging, I will kick you out. In Zhongcheng, I only need to yell, and there are plenty of module stores that want to invest in me. The fat boss gritted his teeth, he knew that what Sun Yan said was true. If Sun Yan endorsed other modules, when people asked which module the Nox Rally champion used, those drivers and girls who followed the trend would definitely go to that module store, and all the business would be taken away by that store. Since Mr. Su has a sharp eye, I will be more honest. The fat boss took out another module from the box with a painful look on his face, and the brighter purple light instantly filled the room. Purple grade steering module, ice breath waterfall. Mr. Su, please take a look. The more you look at the model, the better. When Sun Yan saw this module, he felt it was unusual. When the attributes emerged, he could no longer suppress his greed. Corner, plus 15. Acceleration, minus 4. Anti-collision, minus 4. Stability, minus 4. Endurance, minus 1. The total attribute difference of plus 2 is not that impressive. The main reason is that its attribute addition and subtraction are just right. The positive attribute curve is sufficient, and the negative attribute is evenly distributed, all within the range he can bear. The moment Xingqian saw this module, goosebumps appeared on his body. Top-level mecha girls have a special intuition about modules. She could feel that if she had this thing on her, she could take off on the spot. Xingqian stretched out her little feet and hooked them around Sun Yan's feet. On the surface, she was calm, but in fact, her eyes were frantically signaling to Sun Yan. Master, this module is awesome. Sun Yan was speechless. The owner of the module shop has been working for so many years that he has become very skilled. How could he not see your little eyes? Mr. Su, it seems that your daughter is very interested in this module. The boss narrowed his eyes and showed a cunning smile. Xingqian quickly covered her face with 2 durians when he heard this. Humans are so terrible. Is her performance really that obvious? Sun Yan didn't bother to play tricks with the boss, and said directly, the module is good, I like it, you can ask for anything. The fat boss pinched his fingers and pondered for a while, then raised his eyebrows and said, I hope that the name of my module store can be sprayed on the body of your robot. No. Sun Yan held the module tightly, but refused very straightforwardly. What about the rear window? The rear window is also fine. No, you actually want to put those fancy ads on his cute robot. You're dreaming. Then, what should I do? The fat boss opened his mouth helplessly. He wanted to take the module back, but Sun Yan on the opposite side held the module tightly and didn't let go. Xingqian on the right pressed the table with one hand, and there were fine clicks, and cracks appeared on the solid wooden table. If he dared to touch the module, he wouldn't come in intact and split it into several pieces and pack it out. I'll give you a few options, you can choose. Sun Yan said with a cold face, word by word, wheels, license plates, or you make a badge with your module shop printed on it for Xingqian and I to wear on our chests. During the competition, there are usually close-up shots of the drivers and the girls, which is just right for taking the name of your module shop. It's the best of both worlds. Xingqian nodded solemnly and held up a durian. You can do it on the durian, I will take it to the race. Fat boss. After some choices, the fat boss finally decided to customize a badge for Sun Yan and Xingqian, print his, okay, come to the module shop again, on it, and then spray paint on Xingqian's wheels, and the money for changing tires must be provided by him as the owner of the module shop every time. It seems that he is losing a lot, and in fact he is losing a lot, and the benefits can only be seen in the long run. There have never been such outrageous overlord clauses in the past dynasties. At least he is the first Nox Rally champion in Zhongcheng City. As a local, we have to support him. That's what the fat boss thought in the end. Master, this module is super awesome. As soon as the fat boss left, Xingqian was overjoyed. She turned her back impatiently, hooked her slender and flexible hands on the zipper and pulled it down to her waist, revealing her snow-white shoulders and a large area of smooth skin. Sun Yan, who had seen it once, thought he had developed antibodies, but he still subconsciously took a breath of cold air, especially now that the light was sufficient. The morning light climbed in through the window and slid down along the S-shaped waistline. The already fair skin seemed to be coated with a layer of light glow. Sun Yan's nose felt hot, and he felt something coming out of it. He quickly took out toilet paper from his pocket to plug it. Xingqian had already touched his waist with his backhand and took out the original Hurricane module and put it on the table. Master, help me install the new module, I can't do it myself. Xingqian turned around and handed Ice Breath Waterfall to Sun Yan, naturally without any defense. At this moment, a surge of blood rushed to his head, and Sun Yan seemed to be in heaven, and the director of the orphanage in his previous life was waving at him in the clouds. Oh, it's over. Xingqian quickly covered his chest and stuck out his tongue. I forgot that master will enter when he sees the body of the machine girl. The small-time driver who went into emergency shock. She stuffed ice breath waterfall into Sun Yan's hand and quickly turned her back. The phantom of heaven disappeared, the grandmother in the orphanage disappeared, and Sun Yan finally came to his senses. The toilet paper in his nose had fallen to the ground, and there were a few drops of nosebleed next to it. Master, here. Quote. Xingqian put her hands behind her back, tilted her head slightly, her pretty face was slightly red, and her long eyelashes were flickering. Her long silver hair fell down her shoulders, and her fingers intertwined into a quadrilateral area at the lower back. Just put it here. Sun Yan swallowed his saliva and mechanically stepped forward to complete the module replacement operation. He was now terribly calm, and by the way, he also allocated the MP points he won from winning the Nox rally to Xingqian. In the module-free state, Xingqian's drift and cornering were 25 points and 34 points respectively. He did not mindlessly invest all his MP in cornering, but 16 points for cornering and 14 points for drifting. With the addition of Ice Breath Waterfall, Xingqian's attributes have changed greatly. Drift, 39 points. Acceleration, 86 points. Curving, 65 points. Charge, 90 points. Stability, 71 points. Anti-collision, 76 points. Endurance, 84 points. Although it is still a little biased, it is not much different from the XC76, and it is even a few streets ahead of the Jade -786. If the Jade 786 does not have a cornering module in 2 days, then the self-driving cornering ability will definitely not be better than Xingqian. This is already stable. It can be said that Xingqian trusts him unconditionally, so he also digs holes for him unconditionally. Fortunately, his ability to fill holes has always been good. Seeing that Xingqian has zipped up his zipper very flexibly, Sun Yan also breathed a sigh of relief. Young people are full of blood and he really can't stand it. Xingqian, I'll give you a little advice. Don't open your racing suit suddenly in the future. At least tell me in advance so that I can be more or less prepared. Why? Xingqian turned around, put his hands on his waist, and said seriously with a pretty face, Master, didn't you say something? Did you forget? Quote. What are you talking about? You're a noob, you need to practice more. Sun Yan. After a simple breakfast, Sun Yan took Xingqian to a nearby modification shop to change the tires, bought a bottle of high-energy nutrient solution to replenish the battery life, and then drove Xingqian out of Zhongcheng and came to Tianyuan City next door. Following the address given by Uncle Liang, they came to No. 178 Haitang Street, only to see a shabby shop in front of them, with a closed roller shutter door and a seal on it. The whole Haitang Street was dead silent, with few pedestrians on the road. Master, is this Haitang Street? Xingqian looked around and said stupidly, I thought Haitang Street would be full of crabapple flowers on both sides. Sun Yan's mouth twitched. Then according to you, is the Tiantang Road next door full of lonely ghosts? Well, I'm afraid of ghosts. Master, don't mention it. Quote. Sun Yan smiled and shook his head. He remembered that Xingqian was so scared after watching a horror short film that she cried out in horror. The store is closed. Could it be that Uncle Liang's friend is no longer here? Or did Uncle Liang remember the address wrong? Sun Yan thinks it is the former. Uncle Liang is so careful that he would never remember the address wrong. He would even come to confirm it in person. There is a small store open at the corner of the street. Sun Yan took Xingqian in. A middle-aged woman was sitting at the cashier, watching a TV series intently. That, big sister. Huh, big sister. What big sister? Your whole family is big sisters. The middle-aged woman looked up and glanced at Sun Yan. Ahem, beautiful lady. Sun Yan immediately changed his words and pointed to the store of Uncle Liang's friend across the street and asked, do you know where the owner of that store is? Are you looking for Zhang Lao Lai? The middle-aged woman looked at Sun Yan suspiciously. What is your relationship with Zhang Lao Lai? Quote. Ah, friendship. Hearing the nickname Zhang Lao Lai, Sun Yan already felt bad. Then I advise you to leave quickly. Zhang Lao Lai gambled on the underground game and owed a lot of debts that he couldn't pay back. Now he has been captured by the people in the black market. Anyone who has anything to do with him will not be treated politely by the people in the black market. Black market. Sun Yan frowned. He didn't know much about Tianyuan City. It was the first time he heard the word black market. It didn't seem like a place where decent people would go. The black market is a big deal. It's actually the black market. Xingqian's pretty face turned pale, and her little hand grabbed the corner of her driver's clothes. Sun Yan looked back at Xingqian and asked, "What's wrong with the black market? Do you know the black market?" I received some information about the black market when I was still on the intelligent machine wall. It is said that there are a group of man-eating pilots and mecha girls in it. Xingqian's face was ugly, as if he had thought of something very terrible. Man-eating. Sun Yan's mouth twitched. Although the era of mecha girls is very unscientific, the laws that restrict humans and mecha girls are also very sound. The relationship between the mecha girl and the driver is not that of a master and a servant. The mecha girl who only signs the soul imprint is equivalent to establishing a consciousness link with the driver. The two are in a cooperative partnership. The driver or the club pays the money and the mecha girl works hard. Therefore, there may be irreconcilable conflicts between the mecha girl and the driver, so they break up, but they will not kill or set fire to it, unless one of them goes too far. People have many and complex desires, but the desires of the mecha girl are mainly concentrated on the game. So it is quite difficult for the two to have a conflict. It is nothing more than that the desire of one of them is not satisfied. "Young man, is this your mecha girl? So cute." The shop owner smiled when she heard Xingqian's interesting remarks. "In fact, the black market is not as scary as you think. There are indeed some illegal forces there, but it is also a place where some poor people live. Occasionally, there will be more precious modules or mecha girls with good strength. As long as you can afford the money, you can take them away. Of course, there are also underground mecha girl competitions that I mentioned before." Sun Yan thought, what is the difference between this and fighting black boxing? It would be troublesome if Uncle Liang's friends got involved with this stuff. He needed to know more before making a decision, so he took the initiative to pay for Xingqian's lollipop and asked modestly, "Can you tell me more about the underground mecha girl competition? I just came to Tianyuan City and don't know much about it." Underground mecha girl competition. It's a private competition that is not recognized by any official organization. The training competitions you usually participate in are more or less officially authorized, and those tracks are registered, but underground mecha girl competitions are not. From the track to the players participating in the competition, they may not comply with the rules. The main purpose of holding such competitions is to make money, which also involves usury and gambling. After that, the proprietress looked at Sun Yan sternly and warned. "You kid don't want to participate in the underground mecha girl competition. Your mecha girl is so cute, are you willing to give it up? Otherwise, let her go to me, it's a waste for her to follow you." "Ah, I'm just asking. Boy, do you think I can't afford your mecha girl?" No, I'm very rich." The proprietress took out a playing card box from the drawer. It was upright and then fell down, and the table was full of bank cards. Sun Yan, okay, only his poor world appeared. There are many underground black markets in Tianyuan City. The underground black market on Haitang Street is in the abandoned underground mall at the end of the street. And the one who arrested Zhang Laolai was the local snake of this underground black market, the owner of the Firefox Club, Xu Yuyang. The underground mecha girl competition was organized by Xu Yuyang. Any driver and mecha girl could participate, but fairness and safety were not guaranteed, because the underground mecha girl competition allowed illegal modification. You never know how many RPGs are hidden in the car compartment of the mecha girl who looks harmless on the surface. Sun Yan still decided to take Xingqian to the underground black market to see what happened to Zhang Laolai. Even if he couldn't save him, he had to find a way to get what happened to Uncle Liang from his mouth. 10 minutes later, Sun Yan and Xingqian stood at the entrance of the dark underground mall. 2 empty cans were blown by the wind and rolled on the desolate street. Xingqian hugged Sun Yan's arm with a horrified face. "Master, there are man-eating mecha girls and pilots inside. But you, don't worry, this genius mecha girl will protect you." Sun Yan looked at the trembling Xingqian with suspicion. Her trembling voice made her words very unconvincing. "I eat durian every day, they definitely don't want to eat me, so I just need to protect the master from being eaten." Xingqian was determined and took out the last piece of durian he brought with him and ate it to calm down. Sun Yan, what is it like to have a stinky mecha girl? The two walked into the underground mall side by side. I thought it was. The surface will be more gloomy than the street above. But as the elevator door opened, the roar of punk music, the roar of the crowd, and the colorful neon lights were like a hodgepodge mixed together, all presented in front of Sun Yan and Xingqian. No wonder the streets are so deserted. It turns out that the excitement has moved underground. Sun Yan took Xingqian's hand and walked inside. The place with the most people and the loudest shouting was an area similar to a gladiatorial arena. The excited people were in the stands. Under the stands was an area about the same size as 2 basketball courts put together. There were 2 mechas colliding and fighting like ancient gladiators. One of the black mechas was almost armed to the teeth, and it was equipped with various sawtooth weapons. The other mecha was smaller and bright purple overall. There was no trace of modification on it. It relied entirely on flexibility to deal with the black mecha. Black Shark, tear her apart. Come on, hurry up and knock that little loach away. Are there any more people betting? You can't bet after 30 seconds. Xingqian looked at the fighting mecha girls below, with deep regret and confusion in his eyes. Mecha girls were born to race on the track, they shouldn't be used as tools for human entertainment here. Master, why do they do this? Where are their drivers? Before Sun Yan could answer, an uncle watching the fight next to him took over the conversation. Little sister, not all mecha girls can go on the regular track. Some drivers and mecha girls find that there is no hope and give up. They make money by illegally modifying and playing black races in this life. Some mecha girls have been abandoned by the club, but because they can't afford the liquidated damages, they can't leave the club and have no drivers. They can only make money by themselves. They can only be free after paying the liquidated damages, or go back to the furnace. For example, the mecha girl with a purple body. The uncle pursed his lips at the agile mecha girl in the center of the arena. Her name is Zidian, and she has been here for more than a year. Don't look at her as if she is weak, but she is very agile. I always bet on her to win, and I usually make money. Sun Yan and Xingqian focused their eyes on Zidian. Zidian seemed to have sensed something and looked at Xingqian in the stands through the car window. Is it her? Zidian was stunned. During this moment of distraction, she was also knocked out by the black mecha girl on the opposite side, and stopped only after hitting the wall at the edge of the arena. Oh, how did I get hit? The uncle slapped his head in annoyance. It's over, I'm going to lose money today. Zidian can't get up after being hit. I don't know what happened today. The mecha girl on the opposite side is so slow. The severe pain all over her body made Zidian breathless. She looked at the girl in the stands and saw pity and sadness in her blue eyes. Zidian clenched her teeth. What kind of look was that? She didn't need such a look, she didn't need anyone's pity. Get up, restart. She used all her strength to make herself move. In the past, she would have given up at this time, waiting to be carried down to recuperate and lick her wounds, but today, anger and grievances gathered into terrifying kinetic energy like a flood that was opened, pressing into her chest, burning her heart with a burning pain. Boom! The generator roared, and hot white smoke came out from the hood and wheels. The black girl, who thought she had won, slowly approached, ready to give Zidian the final blow and let her roll off the arena completely. However, when she hit her, Zidian suddenly started and flexibly moved away. The white smoke thrown by the wheels scraping the ground covered all vision. Bang! The black girl hit the wall and was dizzy. Zidian retreated 5 or 6 meters, and a half-meter-long trapezoidal razor protruded from the front of the car. In the cockpit, she raised her pale face, and her eyes flashed with the ferocity of a beast. In my mind, the girl's happy smile and compassionate eyes alternated repeatedly, but they intertwined into the anger in my heart that burned more and more. Zidian, from today on, I will no longer drive you. Zidian, if you want to leave the club, you have to pay 3 times the penalty. It was our mistake to take a photo of you. I didn't expect you to be so unbearable. I don't need a driver at all. I can do it myself. Ah, the roar and the roar of the engine mixed together. Zidian stabbed the black mecha girl like a sword out of its sheath. Pull it out, stab it again, once or twice, until the black mecha girl was completely smoked and unable to move. She stopped tiredly until the trapezoidal razor in front of her had rolled up and the endurance was completely exhausted. Zidian unfurled and lay on her back surrounded by metal wreckage, with one hand raised to cover her forehead and eyes. The light on the ceiling is blindingly bright, but as long as I keep my eyes open, tears won't fall. The uncle knew Zidian well, and he obviously came here to gamble on cars often. Since he knew Zidian well, who came here a year ago, he must be a frequent visitor to the underground black market. Zidian won the fight, and the uncle's mood suddenly turned from cloudy to sunny. Sun Yan took the opportunity to find out where Shu Yuyang, the owner of the Firefox Club, was. Are you looking for Boss Shu? The uncle looked at Sun Yan strangely, with contempt and disdain gradually emerging in his eyes, thinking that this stinky boy might want to participate in the underground game girl competition. What a good game girl, it's really a waste. Just walk in. The brightest and cleanest place is the Firefox Club. Boss Shu is here today. The one wearing glasses is him. The uncle left after saying that, looking like he didn't want to get involved with Sun Yan. Sun Yan and Xingqian followed the uncle's instructions and came to the innermost part of the black market. I almost didn't recognize the Firefox Club when I saw it. The main reason is that the architectural style of the Firefox Club is completely different from the chaotic punk style around it. The bright hall, the transparent floor-to-ceiling glass windows, and the clean beige tiles. It's simply untainted by the mud. A group of pilots and pilot girls gathered at the entrance of the Firefox Club. They surrounded a middle-aged man with a serious face and glasses. Next to the man was a pilot girl sitting in a wheelchair. She looked very quiet, with no expression on her face. Only when Sun Yan and Xingqian approached did she move her eyes and reach out to pull the corner of the middle-aged man's clothes. Shu Yuyang noticed that Sun Yan and Xingqian outside the crowd frowned. Are you here to participate in the underground competition? He had such doubts because he could not see any traces of modification on Xingqian. And the mechas of the surrounding drivers had more or less traces of modification. Illegal modification would cause damage to the mecha body. When it was deployed, it would be reflected in cracks and abnormal noises on the body, and when it was undeployed, it would be reflected in scars on the face, hands, back, etc. that could not be removed by treatment. The more and more complex the modification, the more scars on the mecha body. Only the middle-aged man wore glasses at the scene, and with the tone of questioning, Sun Yan was sure that this was the Shu Yuyang he was looking for. So he took Xingqian forward and said, Hello, Boss Shu, I want to ask about Zhang Laolai. How much money does he owe you? Who are you to Zhang Laolai? Shu Yuyang looked Sun Yan up and down, expressionless. He is a friend of his friend. I mainly want to ask Zhang Laolai about something. Sun Yan said half-truthfully. Hey, Zhang Laolai has friends. How strange. Shu Yuyang shook his head repeatedly. The drivers and pilots around him also smiled contemptuously. It seems that Zhang Laolai is notorious in this street. Sun Yan thought to himself that things were getting more and more difficult. If Zhang Laolai owed a lot of money, he couldn't spend so much money to get Zhang Laolai out. At most, he could ask about Uncle Liang's whereabouts and make some connections so that Zhang Laolai would not be beaten to death. What did Zhang Laolai do? His first-generation mecha girl liked a purple module, but he couldn't afford it. Later, the mecha girl terminated the contract and left with someone else. In order to get the mecha girl back, he kept bringing the second-generation mecha girl to my place to gamble, but he didn't have any skills, so he kept losing. He lost so much that he almost sold the second-generation mecha girl to me, so I stopped him from coming. Shu Yuyang spread his hands and sneered. Originally, this matter should have ended here, but this fool didn't believe in evil and went to my brother's territory to gamble on cars. I was afraid that he would mess up the second-generation mecha girl, so I simply sent someone to arrest him and lock him up to calm him down. Sun Yan and Xingqian looked at each other and were silent. No wonder everyone on this street knew Zhang Laolai. As a mecha girl driver, it's really not good to be like this without some skills. Zhang Laolai owes me 1 million, plus a drone. Shu Yuyang continued, you can see him anytime you want, but don't even think about redeeming him. This guy doesn't even have the responsibility and dignity of a driver, so he deserves to be locked up. Sun Yan estimated that Zhang Laolai had no other friends besides Uncle Liang, and his relatives couldn't be contacted. Shu Yuyang was a local boss here, so calling the police probably wouldn't work. If he was left alone, he might really be locked up here for life. In any case, he should meet the person first. Xu Yuyang was easy to talk to, not like the vicious social boss that Sun Yan had imagined before. When he expressed his desire to meet Zhang Laolai, the man asked him to follow without saying a word. Sun Yan, I was somewhat concerned about the robot girl who followed Xu Yuyang silently and moved in a wheelchair. I wondered why there was still a robot girl in a wheelchair when the robot girl's treatment system and self-healing ability were very advanced. Ming Xingqian could make a pit on the ground with one foot, and other robot girls were probably about the same. Xingqian noticed Sun Yan's gaze, tiptoed close to Sun Yan's ear and whispered, "Master, this may be a mental disorder of the intelligent machine. It is a very terrible disease for robot girls. You can only do psychological counseling, and it is useless to treat external injuries." Ah, cyber depression. Sun Yan had such a word in his mind, and it was hard to imagine what this robot girl had experienced. Xu Yuyang, who was leading the way in front, paused slightly, obviously hearing the conversation between Sun Yan and Xingqian. "Boy, you know the Panlongshan track, right?" "I know." Sun Yan nodded. Before participating in the Panlongshan track, players who have obtained advanced qualifications from the Nox Rally need to choose 3 of the 5 advanced tracks as advanced evaluation tests. Passing the advanced evaluation will qualify them to participate in the Panlongshan track. Sun Yan and Xingqian pricked up their ears. They had just finished the Nox Rally, and this knowledge was exactly what they needed. Among the 5 advanced tracks, there is a track with various ramps. When driving on it, it is inevitable that the car body will be in the air. This is a great test of the technical handling of the pilot and the driver after landing. The most difficult part of this track is the finish line. He turned his head and looked at Sun Yan and Xingqian calmly, and also at his pilot, with the dim light of the ceiling lamp reflected in his eyes. "If you want to reach the finish line, you have to fly over a river." "Fly?" Sun Yan raised his eyebrows. "There is no bridge, no track, you can only rush through it by speed, but you can choose where to cross the river." Xu Yuyang turned around and continued to lead the way. His low and hoarse voice echoed in the empty corridor. "The width of the river is different. The widest place is at the end of the track, with a total length of 250 meters. The farther you go along the river, the narrower the river is, the more time you waste, and the difficulty is reduced accordingly. At that time, I chose a width of about 150 meters to cross the river, but I misjudged the slope and speed. My daughter Lu Guang and I ended up crashing into the river dam on the opposite side." When he said this, Xu Yuyang's voice was almost flat, as if this incident did not happen to him. And Sun Yan only felt a chill on his neck, and Xingqian behind him nervously held his hand. Imagine that scene. If it were in the previous life, the car would definitely be destroyed and people would die, and the King of Hell would shake his head when he saw it. But in this world, even if the driver and the daughter of the driver survived, they must have been extremely painful when they crashed into the river dam. At this time, Xu Yuyang stopped in front of a room and looked at Lu Guang in the wheelchair, his eyes slightly red. "Lu Guang almost gave up self-protection to save me from death, and her entire front car was completely broken after hitting the dam. She endured the pain and fought with her will until the collision ended and the car body fell before she released it. Although she recovered later, she could no longer drive." Lu Guang lowered her head, covered her face helplessly, her shoulders shrugged, and a slight sob came from between her fingers. Every time she walked on the track, she would recall the scene of hitting the dam, and endless fear surged in her heart. These fears were like shackles that imprisoned her body and made her unable to move. Fortunately, although she could no longer drive, Xu Yuyang never gave up on her. He had been doing his best to encourage her and help her overcome the fear in her heart, but there was no progress. Lu Guang often felt guilty. Xu Yuyang should have a brighter future. Anyway, he was not short of money. As long as he bought a good quality machine girl from other clubs, he might be able to continue to participate in the Panlongshan track. Now he can only stay in this underground black market. Sun Yan opened his mouth to say something. Xu Yuyang threw him a bunch of keys, turned around and pushed Lu Guang away. The overlapping backs of the two stretched very long under the lights. "Zhang Laolai is locked up inside. Come out quickly after you finish talking about things. It's just right that you can watch an underground game here." Sun Yan pursed his lips and looked at the keys in his hand. He understood why Xu Yuyang looked down on Zhang Laolai so much. The two of them were so busy that they had to wait for the next day. Sun Yan walked into the room and found that there was already someone inside. It was a machine girl. She was holding something that looked like a box. She turned her head and looked over when she heard the noise at the door. In front of her was a cage similar to a prison. There was a bed lying on it, and a man was curled up with his back to everyone. Ling Feng, who's here? Is it Xu Yuyang? No. The machine girl's voice was very small and thin, giving people a feeling of cowardice. Master, eat something. I haven't eaten for a whole day. The man didn't say anything. After a while, Sun Yan and Xingchen heard the man sobbing, eat. What to eat? I don't know if Po Yu is hungry or tired in the hands of that man. What if he gets angry and smashes the joystick? What if he doesn't install a good module for Po Yu? What if he doesn't wipe his shoes when he gets on the car? The girl named Ling Feng sighed. Master, I have much more money than you, otherwise Po Yu wouldn't have followed me. The man's crying suddenly got louder. Sun Yan and Xingchen looked at each other. I thought Zhang Laolai was a gangster. Now, isn't he just a super hot sheep? So Uncle Liang's friend is actually a god-licking dog. To be honest, Sun Yan's imagination was a little disillusioned. Excuse me, who are you? Ling Feng asked about the identities of Sun Yan and Xingchen. They didn't look like visiting the prison. I'm Uncle Liang's friend, and I came to see Mr. Zhang, Mr. Zhang to ask something. Sun Yan touched his nose and decided to give Uncle Liang's friend some respect in terms of title. Uncle Liang, Xu Ziliang. Zhang Laolai sat up from the bed, revealing a scruffy face. The curly hair on his head hadn't been washed for a few days, and the strands were stuck together and scattered around his head. He had dark circles under his eyes, and his eyes were full of bloodshot, looking like a homeless person under the overpass. Zhang Laolai met Sun Yan's eyes and asked in confusion, are you really my eldest brother's friend? How could my eldest brother, who is so awesome, make friends with a stinky boy like you? He narrowed his eyes. Who are you? Don't try to deceive me. My machine girl knows ancient martial arts. After speaking, he quickly hid behind Ling Feng through the cage. Ling Feng, protect me. Ling Feng raised his arms and posed like a white crane spreading its wings, like an old hen protecting her chicks, but he closed his eyes and looked nervous, stammering, you, don't come over, I'm very powerful. Sun Yan and Xing Chen. He deeply understood why Uncle Liang emphasized taking the photo, probably because he expected the current situation to happen. This is the photo Uncle Liang asked me to show you to prove our identity. Sun Yan showed Zhang Laolai the photo of the family of three, and Zhang Laolai, who had not been serious just now, immediately changed his face. He stared at the photo blankly, his lips trembling. My elder brother, what happened to him now? He left, and left a letter before he left. It looks like he was taken away by someone. Ah, Zhang Laolai slapped his thigh and said, I told him a long time ago that he could not escape the fate of the first day. Now he has been sentenced to a heavy sentence. Do you know what happened to Uncle Liang? When he heard the word, heavy sentence, Sun Yan took a breath nervously. My elder brother didn't say it in the letter, which means he doesn't want to tell you about it. You can go. Zhang Laolai lost his energy in an instant. He lay back in his original position, huddled up, and his buttocks facing everyone. Do you want to be locked up here for the rest of your life? Don't you want to go out and see your Po Yu? I heard that she was your first contracted girl. Zhang Laolai's shoulders trembled. Are you willing to accept this? Tisk tisk, maybe Po Yu will be sold to another pilot. Sun Yan's words were like a devil's scimitar, slashing Zhang Laolai's heart one by one, accurately and cruelly. Even if she is sold to another driver, at least let me see if she is doing well. Zhang Laolai's sobbing voice came, and he was successfully broken by Sun Yan. As expected, to deal with Fei Yongyang, you have to use Fei Yongyang's thinking. Sun Yan breathed a sigh of relief. Boy, you have successfully made me want to get out. Zhang Laolai sat up again and leaned against the cold wall. My eldest brother didn't want to tell you those things because he hoped you wouldn't get involved. If you want to know so much, aren't you afraid of problems in the future? There will be no regret medicine at that time. Those people in this world, with privileges, ordinary drivers like you and me can't afford to offend them. Those people, what do you mean? Smart mechanics, Zhang Laolai said coldly, a group of lawless fools. Sun Yan has seen smart mechanics, Li Yong from the VVC club, but he didn't see many problems with Li Yong. Just a little bit of arrogance at the top of the profession. This arrogance is completely understandable. I'm telling you about my big brother, you have to help me get out. Zhang Laolai straightened his back. Of course you can also break the contract and go back on your word, just think that my big brother has made a mistake. Quote. Sun Yan nodded, motioning Zhang Laolai to continue. 2 years ago, a tragedy occurred on the Longmen Peak track, a national advanced track. A racer named Xu Xiaofang was driving a robot girl through 3 consecutive hairpins and collided with an intelligent mechanic. In order to prevent Xu Xiaofang from overtaking, the intelligent mechanic used psychic power to replace the positions of the 2 robot girls. Xu Xiaofang, whose car was originally facing the inside of the curve, was replaced, and the front of the car became facing the outside of the curve. He and the robot girl didn't react and fell off a 1,000-meter high cliff with the car. Quote. Sun Yan was secretly shocked. The ability of the intelligent mechanic was incredible, as he directly replaced the positions of the 2 cars. However, the ability of the intelligent mechanic is legal in this world, and the casualties caused at this moment should not be considered intentional homicide. You must think that since it is a competition, it is normal to have accidents, right? Zhang Laolai looked up at the ceiling, with a bitter smile on his face. But do you know that the mechanic started the race later? He overtook Xu Xiaofang first, and deliberately waited for Xu Xiaofang at the hairpin, waiting to push Xu Xiaofang off the cliff and kill him at this time, just because they had an argument before the race, and Xu Xiaofang was Liang Shu's son. Quote. Why is it like this? Xingchen said angrily. Don't the racers care about it? What's the difference between this and intentional homicide? Care? How to care? Zhang Laolai laughed. The mechanic said that the machine girl was broken and was repaired on the side of the track. Just when Xu Xiaofang came over, he fixed it. Do you have any evidence that he committed intentional homicide? He just used the mechanic's skills normally. Quote. There are too many such things. Zhang Laolai shook his head and sighed. Ordinary drivers can't fight with the mechanics. They are the protagonists of this world. To use a phrase from the game, we are all NPCs, and drivers with strong skills are at most advanced NPCs. The mechanics and the top-level mecha girls with skills can be called players. Quote. No wonder Uncle Liang told him not to argue with the mechanics. Sun Yan clenched his fists, thinking about what he and Xingchen would do if they encountered this situation. Originally, he was turning at full speed, but suddenly someone replaced his position, and the front of the car was facing the cliff. This situation tests the driver's temporary responsibility. If the front of the car is already hanging on the edge of the cliff, he may be able to ensure that Xingchen does not lose control, but this will definitely not be easy. However, the drivers in this world do not have as many skills as him. In this situation, they can only wait for death. The car body lost control and watched himself and the mecha girl slide into the abyss. What kind of despair is this? Sun Yan took a deep breath. What happened next? Later, my eldest brother tried various channels to seek an explanation, but it was meaningless. I tell you, even if there is evidence to prove that the Omnic engineer did it on purpose, it is useless because Omnic engineers have privileges. They are people who are protected by the upper rules. Zhang Laolai clenched his fists, anger appeared in his eyes. During that time, in less than a month, my brother aged by more than 10 years. Can you believe it? He has challenged all the national advanced track is preparing for the Breath of Death Greven Desert track. He is the only ordinary person among the players who are qualified to participate in that national competition. He fought his way out of the siege as an ordinary person. How talented and hardworking are he and his robot girl to enter the national competition. But even such a person still won't be taken seriously by the official. His talent and hard work are nothing in front of the robot master. Quote. Sun Yan he was silent, feeling like a stone was pressing on his chest and he couldn't breathe. He didn't dare to put himself in Uncle Liang's shoes at that time. Just by listening to Zhang Laolai's description, he could already feel the suffocation and despair coming towards him. Grandpa Liang is so pitiful. Xingchen recalled every little thing about Uncle Liang, and big tears fell from her eyes. Although Uncle Liang looked down on her at first, he always treated her well later, knowing that she likes to eat fish heads, and always leaves them for her to eat, saying that fish heads are not nutritious. My eldest brother gave up participating in the national competition. He wanted to avenge his son. He spent 3 months investigating the wise man. The residence and daily routine of the mechanics prepare a large amount of explosives. The mechanics are protected by multiple mecha girls and are difficult to kill, so we can only use this method to send all the opponents to the sky. Quote. So did Uncle Liang succeed? Sun Yan asked nervously. The bomb was buried in a roadside trash can. It was midnight and the target was on his way back from a nightclub. When he drove his plane closer, the bomb exploded successfully. Zhang Laolai's eyes were full of regret and sorrow, but the other party got an advance warning and used the ability to swap positions with a nearby car, and the man and the robot were unharmed. Quote. Advance warning. His robot. No, it was the second robot of the eldest brother, and Big Brother only has the hard brand contract. Quote. Sun Yan was speechless. He never expected that Uncle Liang's final revenge plan would be ruined by his own robot girl. The second-generation mecha girl wanted to use this opportunity to tie up the thigh of the Omnic Master, and the first-generation mecha girl Kai Xiao, after discovering that she failed to kill the Omnic Master, immediately rushed out from her hiding place regardless of her brother's obstruction. She knew that the Omnic Master with the protection of the Machine Girl against the Machine Girl, not to mention the 1 against 3, she couldn't gain any advantage. She rushed out just to take the blame for the eldest brother. Quote. Sun Yan had seen the betrayal of the Machine Girl, not to mention the Jade 786 continuous betrayed him and Zhang Laolai in front of him as a typical example. He also saw the scene when the Nox rally ended on the day, and the driver threw the penalty fee to the driver and walked away. Xingqian told him that the soul brand the contracted mecha girl can change the driver, but only the core contract means it is completely locked. At that time, he didn't feel anything about this sentence, because at that time he hadn't reacted from the inertia of his previous life and spent money to buy the car. He dared not even think that the car could not recognize him. Along the way, he finally understood the relationship between the pilot and the pilot girl. There is no one who belongs to whom, only whether the goals and interests are consistent. When the pilot girl thinks you are not worthy of her, she will spend money to get you, will turn around and leave. Similarly, when the driver feels that the girl is not good enough, he can abandon her and replace her at any time. This is the cruelty of this world, survival of the fittest. And Xingqian entrusted himself to him with complete trust. The core contract is obviously unequal, because the core contract does not stipulate that the driver can only have 1 mecha girl. If the mecha girl chooses the wrong object for the core contract, she may face the risk of being hidden or sent back to the furnace. For the mecha girl, signing a core contract requires enough trust and the courage to bet on the future. So far, the mecha girls that Sun Yan has heard of, such as Comet of VVC Club and Jueying of SSC, have not signed a core contract with the driver. No matter how good the relationship seems, we are just partners. You should be able to guess what happened next. Zhang Laolai said calmly. Kai Xiao was suspected of attempting to kill an intelligent mechanical engineer and was sentenced to retraining. My eldest brother was identified as an accomplice and was given a lighter sentence, but he also had to be sentenced. 7 or 8 years ago, my eldest brother lost his son and his wife. He was full of revenge and of course he was not convinced. Hiding his identity and starting his life on the run. Now he is probably caught and taken back. He will be sentenced to life imprisonment at least. Quote. Then, what about Uncle Liang's wife? Sun Yan thought of the woman with a gentle smile in the photo. Sister-in-law died of illness a few years ago. Her biggest wish before her death was that my eldest brother and son would be well. Alas, sorry, the final wish was just a luxury. Sun Yan lowered his head and looked at the photo in his hand. Uncle Liang under the helmet was at the peak of his manhood. He and the boy beside him were arm in arm, each with a scissors hand. His wife next to him smiled gently, and her eyes clearly showed love for her husband and children. What a beautiful family is this! It can be said that Uncle Liang's family was destroyed by the mechanic. In fact, it's good that my eldest brother was arrested. Zhang Laolai suddenly sighed to break the silence, and said with a wry smile, the reason why my eldest brother was able to escape successfully was in a sense the tacit consent of the mechanic. Every time when my eldest brother was about to be caught, the clues would be inexplicably interrupted. Quote. Why? Sun Yan was puzzled. From the perspective of the mechanic. Isn't it a good thing to catch Uncle Liang? Boy, do you know how cats catch mice? Zhang Laolai lowered his eyes. Before the cat bites the mouse to death, it likes to play with the mouse and watch the mouse struggling in its hands. The mechanic is the cat and the eldest brother is the mouse. The cat can catch the mouse at any time, but the mouse can only live in the sewer every day. Now the eldest brother is equivalent to being caught in a mousetrap. The eldest brother has lost his freedom, but the cat can only stare blankly outside. Quote. Sun Yan felt chilled just thinking about it. From the perspective of legal judgments, this world has absolute preferential treatment for omnics. But in fact, the privileges of omnics in various aspects may be just the tip of the iceberg. Uncle Liang is probably in prison now. No wonder he said that he would provide food and accommodation. Now he can really be provided for his old age. He couldn't help but smile bitterly with Zhang Laolai. But Uncle Liang is his savior. He couldn't bear to leave Uncle Liang alone and let Uncle Liang spend the rest of his life in prison. Uncle Liang's revenge has not been avenged yet. How painful must he be when he recalls the past every night and looks at the cold ceiling of the prison. Can that omnic just be left at large? Sun Yan raised his eyes, with a cold light in his eyes. Is there any way to punish him? Yes. Zhang Laolai and Sun Yan looked at each other and said word by word, become an omnic. I want to be an omnic. Sun Yan's face was full of determination. Haha, you can do it just by thinking about it. Then everyone is an omnic master. Zhang Laolai rolled his eyes and crossed his arms, not sparing any effort to hit Sun Yan. Sun Yan gritted his teeth. He had heard that it was difficult to become an omnic master before, and it was completely dependent on God's favor. But even if he couldn't become an omnic master, he would take Xingqian to the top, step on the heads of those omnic masters, and stand at the top of the world's racing. Becoming an emperor means you can decide life and death, right? Zhang Laolai secretly glanced at Sun Yan with his peripheral vision. The family photo is the most precious thing to the eldest brother, but it is still entrusted to the young man in front of him, which shows that the eldest brother trusts this young man very much. So, boy, do you really want to become an omnic master? I do, Sun Yan said without hesitation. Zhang Laolai crossed his legs, his gray and white curly hair covered half of his face in a messy way, and his unshaven face showed a smile that was 50% mysterious and 50% vulgar. Hee, maybe I have a way to increase your chances of becoming an intelligent mechanic. But you have to find a way to get me out. Chapter 51. The old man was so angry that he was beaten. Sun Yan was full of disbelief. It is impossible for a dog to become a wolf warrior in an instant. I am the younger brother of the eldest brother, and you are the friend of the eldest brother, which means that both of us are recognized by the eldest brother. I recognize your character, and you also have to recognize mine. Although the rumors outside are not good, I am very serious about this matter. Sun Yan stared at Zhang Laolai for a while, shook his head and said. Then I can only try. I will not help you pay your debt. Anyway, I didn't say how long it would take to get it out for you. You just wait slowly. After that, he took Xingqian's hand and left without looking back. Hey, brat, my elder brother really misjudged you, you went back on your word. Hey, come back, we can talk again. How about increasing your probability by 60%? Zhang Laolai only yelled a few times before he ran out of strength. He hadn't eaten for a day, and it was already very good that he could still yell. Master, do you really have a way to increase the probability of becoming an omnic master? Ling Feng held the lunchbox with both hands on his cheeks and blinked his big eyes, his face full of expectation. What a bullshit way. Zhang Laolai sighed, glanced at a newspaper beside the bed and muttered, it's difficult to become an omnic master, but if I say he can't become an omnic master, that kid will definitely be discouraged, right? That's why my elder brother didn't tell him so much. Now I've said everything, just because I don't want that kid to lose momentum. After all, he is very talented and he will have a bright future, but he can't let it be ruined by the two of us old men. Oh, okay, Ling Feng patted his face regretfully. Zhang Laolai picked his nose and lay down again. He stared at the cold wall, but his eyes were flashing with an inexplicable light. That method might work. The ceiling light illuminated the newspaper beside the bed, and a large banner read. The new king of the Nox Rally, the fastest record in history is born. The text and photos are attached below. In the photo, Sun Yan and Xingchen are holding the trophy high and smiling brightly. The underground race of the black market is held at an unused dock. Xu Yuyang booked this place specifically for the training of the Firefox Club racers and the girls, as well as for team building for the underground black market wild drivers. That is the so-called black race. The audience bets on the ranking, the contestants bet on the ranking, and the top 3 divide the bet money according to the proportion. So in order to get this money, the wild drivers will do whatever it takes. Boss Xu, I want to get Zhang Laolai out. He has to pay off his debts himself, just as a favor to my friend. Sun Yan walked to Xu Yuyang with Xingchen. At this time, the 2 steel bridges were being moved to the designated position with the help of a crane. Xu Yuyang stood with his hands behind his back and said nothing until the steel bridge was put in place. He turned to Sun Yan and said, "Now I know who you are. You are the champion of the recent Knox Rally and set the fastest record of the Knox Rally. I don't know how you are related to Zhang Laolai, but I can give you a favor." He pointed to the steel frame. The width between these steel bridges is 150 meters. The last section of the track for this underground race is here. You and your daughter cannot use any illegal modifications. If you can fly over the steel bridge at the end and win first place, then I will let Zhang Laolai go, but he still has to pay the money himself. Sun Yan carefully observed the 2 sections of steel bridges. This steel bridge is very narrow, only wide enough for 1 car to pass through. There are no guardrails on both sides. After the second steel bridge, there is a 90-degree bend surrounded by containers. After the bend, it is about 200 meters straight to the end. Boss Xu, you are going to do something big today. Are you planning to let us drive through? Boss Xu, can I cancel the registration now? My daughter wants to poop, I'll go with her. When they saw the 2 steel bridges, many wild drivers backed out. The track and content of each underground race are kept secret until Xu Yuyang arranges it, which leads to uncertainty in the ranking. Some wild drivers and daughters who are good at straight lines can only grope when they encounter a track full of curves. At this moment, the steel frame in front of them makes many people hesitate. What's so difficult about this? Sun Yan's mouth twitched. Isn't it just flying over a steel bridge? Just have hands. And the steel bridges on both sides have ramps to raise the takeoff height of the car. The only difficulty is how to handle the 90-degree turn after landing. Inexperienced racers can easily get into trouble when encountering this kind of terrain with flying jumps and turns. The car lost control and hit the guardrail and even turned over. Once the arrow is shot, there is no turning back. Get ready to start, 2 people in a group. Xu Yuyang waved his hand like a duck, pushing Lu Guang forward a few steps, to a best view of the steel bridge. He wanted Lu Guang to see other girls and racers flying, so as to reduce Lu Guang's fear. However, all the wild racers in the black market illegally modified the girls, and Lu Guang didn't feel anything after watching. Today, Sun Yan just made a request to him, so he wanted Sun Yan to try it. The young man who can break the Knox Rally track record and invent so many amazing cornering skills will definitely not let him down, right? Since Sun Yan and Xingchen were the last to sign up, they were naturally the last to start. The dock track is about 50 kilometers long and is a circular track. The last section protrudes 2 steel bridges, followed by a curve, forming a Q-like structure. Except for the steel bridge stage, the track is wide enough to accommodate 4 robots driving in parallel. The player who reaches the finish line in the shortest time will win. The reward amount this time is 1.5 million. Our brutal bull has already paid for his wife. I am looking forward to how many players he can push off the track tonight. The host is a thin young man with tattoos on his arms and a middle-parted hair. His name is Brother Kun. At this moment, he is standing on the stage in the center of the circular track, roaring with passionate punk music. This time, there is also a mysterious guest among our players. The spotlight fell on Sun Yan and Xingchen. That is the champion of this Knox Rally, the Sun Yan-Xingchen combination. Tonight's game is destined to be very exciting. Brothers and sisters, you can place your bets. The roars in the surrounding audience seats are like thunder, and the scene is as enthusiastic as a regular game. Next to Sun Yan and Xingchen, a sturdy uncle led the robot girl over with a kind smile on his face. Boy, is this your first time participating in an underground race? I'll tell you, underground races and regular races are two completely different concepts. Sun Yan glanced at the words printed on the uncle's racing suit on his chest, Brutal Bull. After all this time, this is the Bull brother who was praised by the host Brother Kun as the favorite to win the championship. He looks quite ordinary. Just as this idea came up, Brother Bull had already let his own girl unfold her machine. Boom! A huge monster appeared in front of them. Sun Yan and Xingqian's faces turned green. This is actually a semi-trailer heavy truck, and it is full of horns. The truck was too heavy to be tested, but the truck was too heavy to be tested. Sun Yan was too lazy to check the truck's collision resistance, needless to say it must be very high. If it was hit by the steel shovel on the front of the truck, it would have been knocked off the track if not overturned. Ha ha ha, the guy's face changed when he saw the bull. Don't say he changed his face. Who among us who often run underground races doesn't change his face when seeing the bull? This guy is in trouble, the bull is not slow. The discussion of the racers came from all around. A fair-faced young man came up to Sun Yan and whispered to him, "Brother, is this your first time here? I tell you, don't go head-to-head with the bull. He can't turn corners. As long as you can hold on to the first corner, he won't be able to catch up with you later. Thank you for your reminder. I know what you are doing." Sun Yan laughed and motioned Xingqian to unfold the car body. The young man was envious when he saw the bright silver car body of Xingqian. It was this robot girl and Sun Yan who won the first place in the Knox Rally and broke the track record. He hoped that one day he and his robot girl could officially go on the track like Sun Yan. Now they are still in the stage of saving money to buy modules by playing underground games. The players in front started one after another, and it was Sun Yan and the Brutal Bull's turn soon. "Boy, I will crush you. He he he." The uncle was in a very high mood. When counting down, he wiped his neck and made a bad face at Sun Yan. "Please prepare for the start, contestants number 34 and number 35, countdown 5 seconds. Sun Yan controls the clutch, shifts to first gear, and pushes the accelerator to the maximum. The engine output reaches the maximum, ready to provide terrifying torque and power at any time. Boom boom boom. The low roar is like the howl of a beast. The uncle sitting in the cockpit of the heavy truck next to him is a little confused. What's wrong with this kid? Why is he stepping on the accelerator? Is he mentally ill? 5 seconds passed in a flash. Sun Yan slowly released the clutch, and Xingqian's control system detected the tire grip at any time and transmitted the data to his mind through the will connection. The moment when the time is right. The countdown also ended at the same time. Sizzle. The powerful kinetic energy brought the tire to an extreme speed. The heat caused by the high-speed friction between the rubber and the ground burned red sparks. And Xingqian also jumped out like a wild horse. Only the black marks of burnt tires and a circle of tire gas, with a faint durian smell were left. What the hell? The uncle's eyes widened, and his chin almost hit the joystick. He didn't remember to start his robot until Sun Yan and Xingqian had almost run away. Underground races and regular races are indeed two different concepts. He looked at the empty track in front of him and couldn't help sighing. He took out a cigarette and lit it, leaning his elbow against the car window, his eyes full of vicissitudes. "Master, I don't mind you adding so many collisions to me. But if you smoke on me again, I will throw you off." The speed of the wild car robot is not very impressive. After all, most robots that individuals can afford are hovering between tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands. There are also some local tyrants who have millions of robots, but such local tyrants will not come to participate in underground races. Therefore, even if Xingqian did not use all his strength, his speed was almost twice as fast as theirs. After passing the first relatively easy bend, Sun Yan and Xingqian could already see some of the mecha girls starting in front. "Master, it's so strange, I feel so easy to turn now." Xingqian tilted her head slightly, her little butt twisting happily. You can see her fluttering eyelashes and upturned mouth. "Before, when I wanted to cooperate with you in turning, I felt uncontrollable. Now I can cooperate with you completely. I didn't expect that a module could have such a big improvement." Sun Yan smiled mysteriously, hiding his merits and fame. The improvement of the module is indeed great, but it is mainly the improvement of MP points on the bend and drift attributes. The drift attribute is mainly reflected in the stability of drifting through the bend, while the bend attribute is mainly reflected in the controllability of the mecha girl through the bend. The combination of the two makes it so that when driving Xingqian through this relatively easy bend, he no longer feels like he is holding a bull's horn in his hand. As he spoke, Xingqian was approaching the two mecha girls in front at lightning speed. Just when Xingqian was about to overtake, the sunroof of one of the drones opened, and the driver half exposed his body. He lifted a fire stick with both hands and aimed it at the drone next to him, but found that the one approaching faster. After looking at Xingqian, he pointed the fire stick at Xingqian again. "Master, what is that man holding in his hand?" Xingqian asked curiously, and even deliberately leaned towards the girl on purpose to see more clearly. Sun Yan, however, had a layer of cold sweat on his back. "That's a rocket launcher. Hide." Wow. Upon hearing that it was a rocket launcher, Xingqian was more panicked than Sun Yan. "It's over, Master and I are going to be blown to death." Bang. The muffled sound of the rocket launcher being activated sounded in his ears. Sun Yan didn't even look at it. He hit the joystick hard and swung sideways, but the shell still exploded in front of him, but it was unexpectedly not powerful, but the wind blowing in the face was filled with the spicy smell of pepper. The driver in front saw that Sun Yan had been forced back and immediately let out a wolf howl in excitement. At the same time, the host Kun Ji's introduction also explained Sun Yan's doubts. Dear audience, our Firefox Club's underground competition prohibits the use of all dangerous heavy firepower, but flash bombs, pepper bombs and ink bombs can be used instead. Believe me, although it is not bloody enough, it is definitely exciting. For example, now, our Nox Rally champion has suffered a setback. The spotlight followed the figures of Sun Yan and Xingqian. Laughter came from the audience. Sun Yan pursed his lips, and his mouth was full of spicy taste. PFF'd. I'm choking. Xingqian shook his head, as if he could shake off the pepper taste in his mouth, and said with puffed cheeks, "Master, these people are so annoying." "I think so too." Sun Yan narrowed his eyes, adjusted the car body and continued to close the distance. "Since you like to play so much, let's have fun." At this time, the driver had used the weapons in the car to force the girl next to him to stop. The unlucky girl crashed into the guardrail and was covered by a layer of red pepper smoke. There was a violent cough from inside. Seeing Sun Yan and Xingqian approaching again, the man immediately prepared to take out new weapons, but it was too late. He could only sit back in the cab and swing the joystick to intercept Xingqian. Then the rear hood suddenly popped up, and the black ink sprayed out in a mist, soaking Xingqian behind him all over the car, especially the front windshield was completely covered by ink, and Sun Yan lost his vision. But not everyone needs vision when driving. He can rely on feeling and memory. Turn on the wipers and prepare to enter the corner. It was dark in front of him, but Sun Yan still seemed to be able to see the track. It was a left turn. He did not use the handbrake or change gears. He just relied on inertia to turn the joystick to the full, causing the body of Xingqian to swing 170 degrees. The wheels cut the road obliquely, making a sharp creaking sound. The terrifying acceleration allowed Xingqian to overtake while turning. At this time, the wipers finally cleared an area on the windshield in front of him. The front of Xingqian was facing the front of the girl's car. Her driver was still half exposed outside the sunroof, holding a weapon in his hand, but he was stunned. Sun Yan looked at the racer, and he curled his lips and gave a middle finger. The drift was about to end, and the tire's grip was gradually recovering. He controlled the joystick to the right with one hand, and the front of Xingqian slowly turned back, and the body was straightened at the moment of turning. Oh, Master, what was that just now?" Xingqian's excited voice sounded in front. She patted her head and said in distress, "Suddenly, I looked at that girl, and I didn't react at all." This is called J-shaped drift. Sun Yan was full of pride. "It's not over yet, I have to give something back to that guy." Sun Yan braked suddenly, turned the steering wheel left and right, and pulled Xingqian back at the moment when the car was about to lose control. So a Z-shaped drift trajectory was drawn on the road, looking like a drunkard. The intense friction burned the tires and brought thick white smoke with a durian smell. The smoke completely blocked the vision of the girl behind, and they could only choose to closely follow Xingqian in their field of vision. Sun Yan rushed straight towards the guardrail with the girl behind him. At the moment of collision, a handbrake floated and brought Xingqian back to the track. But the girl and the racer behind him didn't react so quickly, and they crashed head-on into the guardrail. The fight was so exciting that the cheers from the audience never stopped. When Sun Yan completed the J-turn, Brother Kun's voice had already gone hoarse, and now he was howling in a duck voice that had been masculine for 3 days. Dear audience, our Mr. Knox champion has shown us what a real professional driver is. Those who have never been on a regular track are all younger brothers. His girl star has not been modified in any way. You haven't. I heard it wrong. She is the only girl on the mecha that has not been modified tonight. Quote. I still can't imagine how that amazing scene just now was accomplished. But we can look forward to whether Sun Yan can take Xingqian to fly over the steel frame bridge without modification. Quote. In the best stand, Xu Yuyang and Lu Guang stared at Xingqian approaching rapidly on the circular track. Listening to the roar of the engine, the blood that had cooled down seemed to boil again. This kid shouldn't let me down, right? Quote. Xu Yuyang's hands loosened and clenched. Looking down at Lu Guang, he was looking for the light in Lu Guang's eyes. In the crowd, a petite figure wearing a hood stared at the track, her eyes following the shadow of the stars. The stands were full of noise. Just now, another girl failed to pass the steel bridge and fell with the driver. Fortunately, the steel bridge is not high, and there is a spacious buffer zone below, so there is no injury. More importantly, the silver Lu Guang has broken through the wind, roaring towards the steel bridge, moving forward. At this time, another girl had already rushed onto the steel bridge before Sun Yan. Her speed was not comparable to Xingqian's, but she had a strong momentum. The moment she rushed onto the springboard, the body of the car also lifted up, and leapt forward under the action of inertia. Unfortunately, she was not powerful enough, and she had reached the highest point and started to fall after less than a quarter of the jump. In general, in this case, she could only jump half the distance and then fall head-on onto the steel bridge, but she couldn't help but her master would change. Crash! I saw a pair of gliders spread out to the left and right, and the falling speed of the car body suddenly decreased. The racer sitting in the cab breathed a sigh of relief while holding the joystick. I'm such a genius. The man clenched his fists and was filled with joy. It can only be said that installing a pair of hang gliders on his girl was a stroke of genius. While other pilots were still studying how to make the girl's track combat capability stronger, he had already put a lot of thought into saving his life. For example, this pair of paragliders was specially made for the situation where the girl flew off the cliff track. Of course, this also led to his girl's insufficient track combat capability, and it was difficult for him to get a top ranking in every competition. But today is different. With this pair of hang gliders, he will be the first. Money is already waving to him. The man heard the tsunami-like cheers from the audience seats around him. He was drowned by the cheers, and he couldn't help but feel a little flattered. It's just using the hang glider to cross a steel frame bridge. Let alone 150 meters, even if Xu Yuyang took over 250 meters, he would be sure to rush through. Just have hands. However, boom boom boom. The roar of the engine suddenly sounded from above, shattering the man's fantasy moment. What a tough guy. There are masters. He looked up slightly, and saw a flash of silver light above his head, and only white smoke filled the air. The moment he drove Xingqian into the air, Sun Yan's throttle was welded, with no intention of slowing down. The engine speed has reached the limit of Xingqian's Emperor engine. It's so high. Master, slow down. You will fall to death. Sun Yan couldn't help but twitch his mouth when he heard the exclamation in front. He was still wondering why Xingqian became so calm today. It took him a long time to react. It tastes right. The girl's prediction of danger made Xingqian subconsciously want to apply for total control of the car body. However, the absolute trust in Sun Yan made this idea disappear the moment it came into being. The silver streamlined body of the car was like a sword drawn from its sheath, breaking through the air and reaching the highest point in a blink of an eye. At this time, Sun Yan and Xingqian had already flown over 2/3 of the hovering area. They began to fall. Time seemed to slow down. Everyone held their breath, their eyes focused on the silver streamer flying in the air. At this moment, Sun Yan and Xingqian undoubtedly became the focus of the whole audience. Master, their speed is so fast. They can really fly over. Lu Guang held Xu Yuyang's hand, breathing rapidly, with excitement and expectation in her eyes. She expected Sun Yan and Xingqian to cross that natural chasm, and she expected to see someone shatter the fear in her heart, which would bring her unspeakable confidence. Ah, it's actually no big deal. Since others can do it, then I can do it too. Xu Yuyong's eyes were solemn, and he said in a deep voice, "It's easy to get on the springboard, just close your eyes and rush forward, but the landing is the most difficult. At the moment of falling from the air, both the driver and the pilot have to endure the feeling of weightlessness and the illusion of getting closer and closer to the ground, almost crushed to pieces, and these fears and illusions will make them subconsciously brake or release the accelerator. Releasing the accelerator is not a good thing. The pilot will inevitably lose control the moment of landing. The air zone of the steel frame bridge is the first difficulty, and the landing curve is the killer of this road. He is not sure that Sun Yan and Xingqian can do it. Just now he learned that Sun Yan is just a rookie driver, and he is indeed a genius. But no matter how talented he is, he can't make up for the experience gap on the track. That is a precious wealth that requires countless training and competitions and time to accumulate. For Sun Yan and Xingqian, this is probably their first flying jump. Can it succeed? This was the first time he felt nervous since Lu Guang's accident 6 months ago, but he was worried about other drivers and the pilot girl. Xingqian, there is no turning back. The moment you take off, you have to move forward, Sun Yan said firmly. Staring at another steel bridge getting closer and closer, he slowly said, "If you can't rush through, you will fail. If you rush through, you will be reborn. Isn't racing an extreme sport that walks on the line between life and death? It is precisely because of this that people admire it and are so passionate about it. People are a group of guys who are unwilling to be lonely and love adventure. Go forward, leave it to me." Sun Yan solemnly put his hand on Xingqian's buttocks. The belief has been conveyed in place, and when he took back his hand, there was only murderous intent in his eyes. Murderous intent for the track. Although it was just 6 short words, the calm and steady voice injected infinite power into Xingqian's nervous heart. She immediately calmed down and helped Sun Yan coordinate the control of the car body. It was just a 150-meter leap. If it was a master, there would definitely be no problem. Sun Yan adjusted the car body in midair. In order to connect with the next curve, his body also leaned to the left, which made Xingqian's car body have an oblique angle, and at the same time the wheels were fully turned to the left, forming an oblique angle with the direction of the dive of the front of the car. Don't underestimate these 2 angles. They are one of the keys to quickly recover the grip when landing, and are also necessary preparations for the next turn. Master, land 100 and then turn left. Okay. Sun Yan's answer was sonorous and powerful. If Xingqian faced this kind of turn after flying and jumping, she would definitely lose control. But it's different now. Xingqian has been reborn. She is no longer the cowardly girl who can't turn and is desperate for the future. Boom. Xingqian landed. The terrible inertia made the tires slip and rub wildly on the ground. Xingqian's body hit the guardrail with almost no deceleration. But thanks to Sun Yan's early adjustment of the body landing state, while hitting it, the body also quickly moved sideways, forming a situation similar to inertial drift. When the 4 tires formed friction with the ground, Xingqian's speed of hitting the guardrail suddenly decreased, and finally stopped for a moment at a distance of less than 1 meter from the guardrail, and the throttle that had been fully pressed also played a role at this time. Xingqian's speed increased rapidly, and she rushed out of the curve like an arrow from a bow. She crossed the finish line with a trail of smoke. And until then, the modified hang glider girl had just crossed the hovering zone. The whole stadium was dead silent. Sun Yan got off the car calmly, and Xingqian also released the unfolded form. Her shoes can reflect the state of the tires. At this moment, seeing the almost worn soles, she couldn't help but pout. "Master, I have to change the tires again. 1 tire can buy a lot of snacks." They crossed the finish line. Kun finally reacted, raised the microphone and roared in anger. A nearly perfect jump followed by an extremely gorgeous turn. Tonight's champion belongs to our king of knocks, Sun Yan and his girl Xingqian. Xu Yuyong stared blankly at the young couple holding hands at the finish line. For a moment, he actually felt a little wet in his eyes. He lowered his head and wanted to wipe the corners of his eyes secretly. But he found that Lu Guang beside him stood up at some point. "Lu Guang, you." At this moment, Lu Guang was also looking at Sun Yan and Xingqian at the end. Her eyes gradually retracted and fell on the steel bridge. The light in her eyes gradually became firm, but just as she was about to take a step forward, her body unconsciously tilted to the side and fell into Xu Yuyang's arms. Lu Guang, you can stand up. Xu Yuyang stuttered. He was really happy. The hand holding Lu Guang was shaking. Yes, but I still can't walk. Lu Guang frowned and tried to move his steps, but found that he was still sore and weak. That's good, as long as there is hope for recovery. Xu Yuyang quickly helped Lu Guang sit down on the wheelchair, while secretly wiping away the tears from the corners of his eyes. His judgment was indeed correct. Letting Lu Guang watch the flying and jumping scenes of the mecha girls can indeed help Lu Guang overcome his fear. However, the Greenfield Advanced Track is only opened once every 6 months, and there are usually no mecha girls practicing flying and jumping on the river bank, so he can only build a steel frame bridge for wild racers and mecha girls in the black market to try it out, but it is impossible to hold this project every time for underground races, so it can only be brought up occasionally. In addition, wild racers and mecha girls are basically modified, so even if they fly over the steel frame bridge, it is not meaningful. Lu Guang has seen it several times. Although the scenes of wild racers and mecha girls flying over the steel frame bridge with the help of modifications are also very impactful, they are far less than Sun Yan and Xingqian who went on the field without any modifications. After all, it is equivalent to restoring the choice he and Lu Guang made at the last section of the Greenfield Advanced Track at that time, flying and jumping over the 150-meter hovering zone. But now Lu Guang already knows that this 150-meter hovering zone is not a nightmare. It can be completely overcome. At this moment, the mecha girl who modified the hang glider also reached the finish line. They were the second place, and no driver or pilot could reach the third place. In the past, the air zone between Xu Yuyang's steel frame bridge was set to 50 meters, and then gradually expanded to 100 meters. Few pilots could pass the 100-meter air zone. Now, this 150 meters is like a natural barrier for wild drivers. Look at the pilots and racers in the air zone. They are all covered in dust. Fortunately, the height of the steel frame bridge is average, otherwise several ambulances would have to come today. Master, I just felt a knife flying over my head. The pilot girl, Chenzi, who was modified into a hang glider, followed the driver off the track, with a lingering fear on her face, but at least it's the second place, so there is a lot of prize money. She stuck out her tongue playfully, but saw her master staring at her head with a strange expression. Chenzi, you. The pilot scratched her head in confusion, and she grabbed a handful of burnt hair. Her eyes gradually widened, her pupils trembled, and she screamed. My hair. Chenzi, your hair is burnt. The racer sighed helplessly. When the girl flew over our heads just now, your roof was scratched by her hot tires. Woo 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 woo, my hair, I'm ugly, I'm bald. In fact, it would be fine if the girl didn't rub her hair. Once she rubbed it, the top of her head would all fall off. From a distance, wouldn't it be a bright Mediterranean? But even so, the racer didn't dare to cause trouble for Sun Yan and Xingqian. The track is like a battlefield, and it's good that they didn't use them as pedals. He only admired and envied Sun Yan. He admired Sun Yan's incredible skills and envied Sun Yan for having such an excellent girl. But even if he envied, he would not dislike his own girl. It's okay, Chenzi, it will grow out in a week. He touched Chenzi's shiny bald head and smiled to comfort him. I will buy you a wig and a few bottles of high-energy nutrient solution when I get the bonus later. It will grow very fast. Woo woo woo. In the crowd, the hooded girl turned and left silently. Her eyes gradually dimmed as she left the crowd. Can I really rush through that kind of hovering area by myself? Zidian pursed his dry lips. That girl is so lucky. It is said that she was born with a defect in steering, but she can find a master who will never leave her and is willing to accompany her to improve together. But what about her master? A glamorous woman gradually emerged in Zidian's mind. Now the ace of the BSC, Blitz Speed Club. That woman was also a genius. She chose her when she had not yet shown her talent, but that woman abandoned her at the peak moment because she was a drag, and even refused to give her the qualification of the second generation of the mecha girl. I don't need a driver or anything like that. Zidian shook his head, his eyes becoming more and more indifferent. Humans are all hypocritical. That man is so talented that he will definitely abandon this mecha girl sooner or later. Any genius driver will never accept a defective mecha girl, and there will be no exceptions to this. The inner thoughts made Zidian's steps more determined. She walked along the wall of the corridor, and her figure gradually disappeared in the darkness at the end. Boss Shu, is my flying jump good enough? Sun Yan and Xingqian stood in front of Shu Yuyang. He could clearly feel that the owner of the Firefox Club looked at him with a much more friendly look, and the mecha girl named Lu Guang next to him actually showed a quiet smile on her face. This was the first time Sun Yan and Xingqian saw her smile. Before, he looked empty and melancholy. Enough. That's really nice. Shu Yuyang gave Sun Yan and Xingqian a thumbs up and ordered his men to bring the prize money. Originally, the prize money for the top 3 was 1.1 million, 300,000 and 100,000. But since there was no third place, the first and third prize money all belonged to Sun Yan. The box was soon placed on the table in front of Sun Yan, and it contained a full 1.2 million. Oh, I'm rich, I'm rich. Xingqian picked up a stack of money with his left hand and a stack of money with his right hand, his big blue eyes sparkling. Brother Sun Yan, this is the most perfect flying jump that Lu Guang and I have ever seen. Shu Yuyang said excitedly. Especially your final handling of the curve, the posture you posed in the air in advance, it's really too beautiful. After that, he scratched his head a little embarrassedly. It's like this, I have an unwelcome request. Can you show Lu Guang more scenes of flying over steel bridges before the Greenfield Advanced Tournament starts? I know that this pair of mecha girls' tires are very worn out. Don't worry, I will pay for the nutrient solution and tires, and I will give you 20,000 yuan for each jump you complete. Master, Xingqian pulled Sun Yan's sleeve and gestured with 10 fingers with a serious face, I can fly and jump 100 times a day. I am not afraid of pain, not afraid of fatigue, I am hardworking, and I can withstand collisions and beatings. Sun Yan and Shu Yuyang. Well, actually, 1 jump a day is enough. Lu Guang can't digest more than that. Shu Yuyang was embarrassed. If he really followed Xingqian's jump method, he wouldn't have to open this club in the black market. Lu Guang, I believe you can digest it, right? Xingqian took Lu Guang's hand with eagerness, staring at Lu Guang's eyes with big eyes. Even if 100 times can't digest it, 50 times is also possible. Master said that watching is also a kind of experience. Watching more can form eyeball memory. Lu Guang. Ahihi. Sun Yan was speechless. He clearly said that practicing more can form muscle memory. What the hell is eyeball memory? Boss Shu, are you planning to stimulate Lu Guang's recovery and continue to participate in the Greenfield Advanced competition? Yes. Shu Yuyang and Lu Guang looked at each other, and they could see the determination in each other's eyes. Challenging the provincial track has always been the wish of Lu Guang and me. If we stop here in this life, our future self will definitely look down on us now. How long is it until the Greenfield Advanced competition? 14 days, to be precise, 14.5 days. Shu Yuyang replied, if you miss this Greenfield Advanced competition, you will have to wait another half a year. Sun Yan touched his chin and squinted. It is not clear whether Lu Guang can recover after 14 days. But the conditions given by Boss Shu are hard to refuse. The tires and nutrient solution are delivered, and he also gives 20,000 every day. For him and Xingqian, it is equivalent to training and making money at the same time. Why not? But, Boss Shu, I can agree to this, but Zhang Laolai. I will let Zhang Laolai go now. Shu Yuyang waved his hand and said generously, you don't have to pay back the money. As long as he doesn't continue to do evil, I won't care about him. No, you misunderstood. Sun Yan smiled. The money still needs to be paid by Zhang Laolai himself. This kind of licking dog should learn a lesson, don't you think so, Xingqian? Yes, master, hehe. Xingqian is now almost in sync with Sun Yan's brain circuit. Knowing that letting Zhang Laolai continue to owe money is a means to restrain Zhang Laolai. As expected of his own master, it is hard not to love. The old man was very angry. When he was arrested, Zhang Laolai was timid. When he was released, he walked with a step that he didn't recognize his relatives. Boss Shu, I told you a long time ago that you can't lock me up. I have 100 ways to get out. Zhang Laolai stood in front of Shu Yuyang with a smug look on his face. Ling Feng behind him turned pale with fear and kept pulling at the corner of Zhang Laolai's clothes, but he couldn't pull Zhang Laolai's mouth. So what? Xu Yuyang raised his eyebrows and sneered. You still owe me 1 million and a machine girl. I have 100 ways to make you pay back. Zhang Laolai looked back at Sun Yan with a look of surprise, and Sun Yan spread his hands to Zhang Laolai. Why didn't you tell me earlier that you didn't pay me back? No, shouldn't you have settled my debt as well? He lowered his voice and muttered, Boy, what I'm going to teach you is a unique secret that is worth 1,000 gold coins. Don't bother about a little money. I know you have money. Sun Yan spread his hands. First of all, you didn't ask, and secondly, this is one of the conditions for letting you out, otherwise Boss Shu won't let you out. The smile and boasting on Zhang Laolai's face gradually froze, and when he looked at Xu Yuyang again, only humility and flattery remained. Boss Shu, just now, I was just playing a little joke on you. Xu Yuyang, get lost. Zhang Laolai came out of the black market with a dusty face and returned to his store. Sun Yan and Xingchen followed him and Ling Feng. There were still 14 days before the Greenfield Advanced competition. Sun Yan planned to live in Tianyuan City, which was closer to the airport, so Xingchen could sleep in a little longer before the competition. Boy, I'm just selling high-energy nutrient solution, and I occasionally run a rally. Zhang Laolai pulled up the shutter door, and saw that the shelves inside were filled with high-energy nutrient solution of various flavors. This high-energy nutrient solution comes from a rare energy source in this world, sodium fiber. Sodium fiber is divided into 3 types, namely sodium fiber alpha, sodium fiber beta and sodium fiber omega. The first type of sodium fiber is specially used to replenish the endurance energy of the mecha girl. Although the mecha girl can also obtain energy through eating, the energy provided by human food is negligible. The second type is dedicated to the intelligent mechanical engineer, which can replenish spiritual energy or allow the mecha girl to release a skill again. This thing has great side effects and can generally only be used once a day. The third type is very mysterious and is firmly controlled by the official of this world. It is basically not circulated on the market. Wow, it has my favorite AD calcium flavor. Xingchen supported his knees with both hands, leaned over and stared at the shelf with his eyes shining. Seeing this, Ling Feng immediately took down the plate of high-energy nutrient solution and handed it to Xingchen. I haven't paid yet. Sun Yan pinched Xingchen's soft face. It's okay, drink as much as you want. Zhang Laolai turned on the light and said indifferently, a little high-energy nutrient solution won't make me bankrupt. Sun Yan's eyelids twitched. If I remembered correctly, this guy is now in debt of 1 million plus a robot girl. This is not considered bankruptcy. Is it the so-called debt is not a worry? Do you really have a way to increase my probability of becoming an intelligent machine master? Sun Yan asked. Boy, can I still lie to you? Zhang Laolai crossed his arms and looked like a master. When my eldest brother and I were preparing to take revenge on the intelligent machine master, we also studied how to make ourselves intelligent machine masters, but my eldest brother couldn't wait any longer. He wanted to kill the intelligent machine master immediately, so in the end this plan was not confirmed. It is theoretically feasible. Ling Feng lowered her head and pinched the corner of her clothes awkwardly. She couldn't understand how her master could fool people without blushing or beating his heart. Sun Yan only believed 10% of what Zhang Laolai said. He believed that Uncle Liang had studied it. After all, it was the most convenient and quickest to deal with the intelligent mechanics as an intelligent mechanic. When the two were equal in status, the government would naturally treat them equally. However, Uncle Liang probably failed in the end. He did not intend to expose Zhang Laolai, and pretended to be interested and asked, what do you think? First of all, to become an intelligent mechanic, you must have a strong physique. Zhang Laolai took 2 steps forward, picked up Sun Yan's clothes and sleeves with his hands and feet, and glanced at them. His eyes were full of disgust. You have no strength in your arms, no strength in your core, and no muscles at all. It is impossible for a thin dog like you to become an intelligent mechanic. As if to increase his persuasiveness, Zhang Laolai took out a stack of photos from the drawer and spread them out for Sun Yan to see. As shown in the picture, these are some photos of intelligent mechanics there are. These are the photos I took secretly. Zhang Laolai pointed to a few photos of female mechanics in the gym. The other party's round buttocks were facing the camera, and they were obviously doing deadlifts. This shooting angle was both skilled and vulgar. You see, these mechanics are very concerned about strengthening their physical fitness. All the women have trained their bodies to be convex and curvy, and all the men have tendons. They don't have to be big, but every muscle is carefully carved. So what? Sun Yan's mouth twitched slightly. So you have to practice physical fitness from today. There are still 5 months before the Panlongshan track opens. In these 5 months, you must not only pass at least 3 advanced tracks to get the top 10, but also train your body. Just practice physical fitness. Of course not. Zhang Laolai raised his chin and sneered. If fitness alone can increase the probability of becoming a mechanic, wouldn't there be mechanics everywhere? In addition to physical training, you also need to train nerve reflexes, spiritual perception, and the most important step. Quote. What is the most important step? Zhang Laolai did not say anything. He patted Sun Yan on the shoulder and said, Boy, don't be too ambitious. When you have passed all the previous projects, I will help you arrange the last step. Sun Yan felt that Zhang Laolai was unreliable, but he supported Zhang Laolai's request to train his physical fitness. Racers also need physical fitness, even those in the era of the mecha girls. The intelligence and power of the mecha girls also increase the difficulty of the track exponentially. For example, one of the national level tracks, Death Breath Greven Desert Track, is 4,000 kilometers long. Racers have to drive the mecha girls in a harsh environment for more than 10 hours. How can they withstand it without strong physical fitness? Just prepare for the future, Sun Yan said to himself. After Zhang Laolai came back, he was quite honest and did not clamor to buy back the first runner Po Yu. However, just when Sun Yan thought that the matter had settled down, Zhang Laolai and Ling Feng opened a small shop and slowly paid back Boss Shu's money. While he was training with Xingchen every day to prepare for the Greenfield Advanced competition, Zhang Laolai's first runner Po Yu came with his new master. The new master Han Si is a young racer, wearing a brand name racing suit, which is also a vacuum self-priming custom-made one. His watch, backpack, glasses, and earrings on his left and right all exude the aura of a nouveau riche. In his previous life, if he had dyed his hair into a funeral love hairstyle, with half of his hair covering his eyes, wouldn't he be a spirited young man? Unfortunately, the girls don't care what their masters look like. Most of them only care about whether they can get on the track and whether they will get resources to cultivate. Seeing Po Yu and Han Si's visit, Zhang Laolai's eyes flashed with surprise and surprise. He quickly invited Han Si and Po Yu into the house, arranged their seats, and enthusiastically served 2 cups of good tea. Po Yue, why did you come back? Do you think my place is better? Zhang Laolai said attentively. Although the purple module is very good, it is not as good as the master who knows everything about it. Han Si sneered and tilted his head and said, Zhang Laolai, we are here to discuss a deal with you. Deal, yes. Po Yue crossed his arms and glanced at Zhang Laolai coldly. I have heard about your affairs during this period. In order to raise money to buy me back, you took Ling Feng to play underground black games everywhere, and you were unwilling to participate in illegal modifications, so you basically lost, and now you are in debt. Zhang Laolai looked at Po Yue blankly, his hands stiff and he didn't know where to put them. He didn't understand why Po Yue came back to tell him all this. Since we have been partners for 5 years, I will give you another chance. Po Yu crossed his legs and said in a tone that was almost condescending, in the Echo Valley training match the day after tomorrow, you will take Ling Feng to the court. If you can beat me and Han Si, I will continue to be your starting player. If you can't beat me and Han Si, this store will belong to Han Si. How about it? The room suddenly became quiet. Ling Feng stared at Zhang Laolai and clenched his fists nervously. There was no need to think about this kind of thing. It was a direct rejection. Obviously, the other party came here to get something for nothing. When auctioning the machine girl, an agreement will be signed. No matter whether it is an individual or a club, once the machine girl wants to leave on her own initiative, she needs to pay 3 times the liquidated damages, and as long as the machine girl can afford this money, neither the individual nor the club can restrict the freedom of the machine girl. Han Si obviously knew Po Yu's position in Zhang Laolai's heart and wanted to get all the money back in this way, but Zhang Laolai must have no money now, so he can only stare at Zhang Laolai's store. After a long silence, Zhang Laolai took a deep breath. I need to think about this. What is there to think about? Po Yu slapped the table and said dissatisfiedly, you don't think Ling Feng can help you win the Greenfield Advanced competition? Don't be naive, Zhang Laolai, let's not talk about Ling Feng's performance. Just say that you haven't trained with Ling Feng many times. How can you take her to run on the Greenfield track? I am the only one who can help you win the Greenfield Advanced competition. Zhang Laolai whispered, loosening and clenching his hands. Ling Feng shrank in the corner, his slender shoulders trembled, and his head buried lower. Okay, Po Yu, stop talking. Han Si put his arm around Po Yu's shoulders and said with a smile, Zhang Jinbao, I'll give you half a day to think about it. I want your answer after half a day. If you don't make any move, I'll assume that you've refused. Po Yu will never give you such an opportunity again in the future. This is just a small test that Po Yu gave you out of pity. You can't even handle this small test, right? After that, Han Si and Po Yu didn't stay for long. They got up and pushed the door to leave. When they went out, they just ran into Sun Yan and Xingchen, who had returned from training. Po Yu's eyes fell on Sun Yan. He always felt that Sun Yan was a little familiar, but he was pulled by Han Si, so he couldn't look at him too much. Laolai, who were those two just now? Sun Yan walked into the store and immediately felt a low pressure coming towards him. Zhang Laolai sat at the table, a drop of sweat rolled down his pale cheek, his eyes hidden behind his gray curly hair were full of panic and helplessness, his shoulders and back pressed down little by little, as if he was carrying a heavy stone. Ling Feng huddled in the corner, looking like an autistic girl. What happened to you two? Sun Yan and Xing Chen were confused, but they quickly connected it to the two people who just left. Zhang Laolai and Ling Feng's weird state must be related to the two people just now. Sun Yan. Zhang Laolai swallowed his saliva and said tremblingly, the one who just came was Po Yu and Po Yu's current driver Han. See, she said that as long as Ling Feng and I beat her in the Echo Valley training match the day after tomorrow, she will come back. You promised. Sun Yan frowned. I said I'll consider it. Consider it. Sun Yan was almost angry. Isn't the lesson of Uncle Liang enough? Po Yu can betray you once and she will betray you a second time. As long as a better driver appears and the other party can afford 3 times the liquidated damages, she will immediately go with him. Don't you know it? I know everything. Zhang Laolai cried. But if you want to win the Greenfield Advanced competition, you must have Po Yu. Po Yu and I have run in many times. There will be no problem in this advanced competition. If there is no Po Yu, where can I find a driver to replace him in a short time? Where is Ling Feng? Sun Yan pointed at the girl in the corner. What do you think of Ling Feng? Quote. Ling Feng's performance is not good enough. Bang. Sun Yan punched Zhang Laolai in the face. The man stumbled and fell to the ground, his messy hair covering his face, but he didn't have any intention of resisting. Coward, if you were not Uncle Liang's friend, I would not care about you at all. Sun Yan shook his wrist and said coldly, you know how Ling Feng treated you. Blame the machine girl for your poor skills. As an old racer, don't you know whether Ling Feng's performance can run the Greenfield Advanced race? Zhang Laolai's reason was just to fool others. He knew Ling Feng's performance at a glance, and it was no problem for him to finish all the advanced races and qualify for the provincial track. Xingchen, let's go and let him fend for himself. Quote. Sun Yan snorted coldly, took Xingchen's hand and walked out. He didn't plan to stay with Zhang Laolai anymore, it looked unlucky. Xingchen looked back at Ling Feng every 3 steps, his eyes full of worry and heartache. You're right, I'm a loser. Sun Yan stepped on the threshold, and Zhang Laolai cried out from behind. In the past 6 months, I participated in 5 advanced competitions, and I didn't get into the top 10 all 5 times. No matter how hard I tried, it was meaningless. I also want to save Uncle Liang. He is my master. How can I watch him hide outside? He is still in prison now. But what can I do? Obviously I have the ability to enter the provincial track, but there are always various accidents in the advanced competitions, and I am always targeted. Quote. He slapped his face as he spoke. The dust and tears on the ground mixed into mud, outlining a deep look of embarrassment on his face. The man knelt on the ground and cried with his head in his hands, his voice intermittently squeezed out from his teeth. Being targeted? What do you mean? Sun Yan looked back at Zhang Laolai with a frown. In the first advanced competition, Master lost control and turned sideways when turning. In the second and third advanced competitions, he was inexplicably targeted by the club's racers. In the fourth competition, he was smashed before he even went to the store. In the fifth competition, he was inexplicably disqualified because of his dress at the beginning of the competition. Quote. Ling Feng's weak voice sounded beside her. She lowered her head, tears in her eyes, and said in a depressed mood, I am a discarded girl that Master collected from another club. My performance is not as good as Po Yu, and I don't have the track experience of Po Yu's 5 advanced competitions. So for Master, Po Yu is the trump card and the life-saving straw. Now that Po Yu has left him, it will be even more difficult for him to achieve results on the track. If my performance is better. Ling Feng choked and burst into tears. Now with the appearance of Han Si, the last trump card is gone. Suddenly, Zhang Laolai staggered to his feet, and in the astonished eyes of Sun Yan and Xingqian, he knelt down with a thump. He supported himself on the ground with both hands, and tears dripped down his cheeks. Sun Yan, I want to learn technology. Please teach me some technology. Quote. The two of them were in a mess, but the two of them were in a mess. Sun Yan looked at Zhang Laolai with a complicated look. Zhang Laolai is called Laolai, and there is nothing wrong with this nickname. You are targeting my cornering skills, and you are sure that I will help you, so you didn't refuse the bet immediately, right? Not entirely. Zhang Laolai lowered his head and said, even if you don't come today, I will find a way to get out of Shu Yuyang these days, and then find a way to get Po Yu back. She and I have been honing for a long time, and I am very confident about this green field advanced competition, but I didn't expect. You didn't expect that the girl who has been with you for 5 years would pat her butt and say goodbye to you for a purple module, right? Yes. Zhang Laolai lowered his head even lower. He stared at Sun Yan's shadow, his eyes full of hope. If Sun Yan was willing to teach him the cornering technique, then in the Echo Valley training match, he should be able to beat Po Yu with Ling Feng, and then use Po Yu to participate in the next advanced competition and then enter the provincial competition. However, a basin of cold water was poured on his head. I won't teach you to corner. Sun Yan leaned against the door sill, his face cold. I don't accept moral kidnapping, and I won't teach you the skills. You are a coward who blames the lack of skills for the lack of machine girl attributes. He closed the door with a bang, pulled Xingqian and turned away. Sun Yan walked to the street lamp and stopped. The two were already far away from Zhang Laolai's shop. Xingqian tugged at Sun Yan's sleeve and blinked his big eyes. Master, don't be angry. I'll buy you a durian later and open it for you to eat. I'm not angry. Sun Yan pinched Xingqian's nose. I just feel sorry for him. I thought that as Uncle Liang's apprentice, he would at least be a steady person, but I didn't expect him to be so reckless. In fact, it can be seen from the fact that he participated in the underground competition like a madman after Po Yu left that this person likes to get stuck in a dead end. Xingqian analyzed seriously. Generally, people who like to get stuck in a dead end are more extreme in doing things. Indeed, such people should fend for themselves. Sun Yan snorted coldly. In other words, Zhang Laolai's starting point was for Uncle Liang, otherwise today would not be as simple as a punch. He had to ask Boss Shu to catch Zhang Laolai and lock him up again. It's just that Ling Feng is too pitiful. Xingqian pouted and sighed. How happy Ling Feng would be if she had a master like me. She is a second-time driver, so the training opportunities must have been given to the first-time driver. Zhang Laolai would not dare to take her to the track. Zhang Laolai still has a conscience and knows not to modify Ling Feng. Sun Yan subconsciously wanted to take out a cigarette from his pocket and light it, but his hand was empty. Then he remembered that Uncle Liang had helped him quit smoking. Uncle Liang, I don't know how he is doing now. Life in prison is not as good as imagined. Free food and accommodation are just self-consolation. Master, Ling Feng is so pitiful. Master, Zhang Laolai will definitely lose the day after tomorrow. The nutrient solution store is gone, and Ling Feng will definitely have to sleep on the street with Zhang Laolai. She is so pitiful. Master, Xingqian hugged Sun Yan's hand, walked around in front of Sun Yan, and shook Sun Yan's arm left and right to act coquettishly. In that case, Xingqian will not be able to get her favorite AD calcium out of print high-energy nutrient solution for free. Sun Yan looked at Xingqian's soft and pretty face, and his mouth twitched. Just tell me what you mean. I mean, can I? Xingqian looked up at Sun Yan, and his fingers circled each other. No, I won't help Zhang Laolai. Not to help that stupid egg. Xingqian quickly explained. It's to help Ling Feng. Help Ling Feng. Sun Yan was stunned. How can I help Ling Feng? His first reaction was that Xingqian wanted him to help Ling Feng improve his attributes. But he immediately came to his senses. Only he knew about the deep blue extra points. Xingqian definitely didn't mean that. I heard that the Echo Valley training racetrack has a lot of bends, which is specially used to test the cornering ability of the pilot and the driver. What I mean is, Xingqian said carefully with a flattering face. I mean, can the master personally drive Ling Feng to help her experience more bends? Just treat it as helping her train. What if she can complete the race by driving automatically? Sun Yan narrowed his eyes and looked at Xingqian up and down. Oh, it is said that a man should be revisited after 3 days of separation. Look, he hasn't even said goodbye to Xingqian yet, and he's already looking at him with new eyes. He's already plotting against the master, right? There's progress. Xingqian still hopes that Zhang Laolai and Ling Feng can win the Echo Valley track. It seems that the main purpose is to help Ling Feng, and the reason of getting nutrient solution for free, needless to say, it accounts for 90%. Facing Sun Yan's judgmental eyes, Xingqian smiled innocently, hee. Sun Yan also sobered up after being blown by the cold wind outside. Zhang Laolai rejected Han Si, and Han Si and Po Yu continued to be at large. Agree with Han Si, Ling Feng will definitely not win in his current state unless he starts. Helping Ling Feng does not require teaching Zhang Laolai any skills, and it can also make the cowardly Ling Feng face himself and give Zhang Laolai some stimulation. Although Xingqian's plan is a bit suspicious of taking advantage of loopholes, it does make him more acceptable psychologically. Besides, let's not talk about Po Yu, a traitor. Han Si, a yellow-haired racer who steals other people's property, is also very unbearable. The pure love warrior Sun Yan narrowed his eyes. The murderous intention came. Master, get up quickly, don't kneel on the ground, everyone is gone. Ling Feng sighed and went forward to help Zhang Laolai up. Zhang Laolai sat back in the chair with a dejected face, rubbed his face, and inserted his fingers into his curly hair. Ling Feng, what should I do? I can only refuse the bet. I can't bet all my last fortune. If Echo Valley can't win, the Greenfield Advanced Tournament will be like that. Without Po Yu, a mecha girl with superior attributes, he did a lot of stupid things to anger Sun Yan, and now he can't learn any skills, which has completely put himself in a dead end. Ling Feng was silent. She couldn't say, Master, let's train together and cheer together. Because she knew that Po Yu's speed was much faster than hers. Even if Zhang Laolai still has money to buy her a purple module, won't Han Si also buy one for Po Yu? The shop gradually became quiet, and the two of them sat in their own corners like sculptures. Until the door was kicked open with a bang. Sun Yan pulled Xingqian back. He glanced at Zhang Laolai and Ling Feng who were sitting there indifferently, and said expressionlessly, Ling Feng will train with me for an afternoon tomorrow, and you have to reimburse the nutrient solution and tire fees. Hey, reply if you hear me. I heard it. Zhang Laolai looked at Sun Yan blankly. He soon realized something, and his eyes were filled with tears. You are over 30 years old, and you cry at every turn. What kind of virtue is that? Sun Yan snorted coldly, and said with a fake smile, you have to agree to the bet first. Ling Feng will definitely win the Echo Valley training match, but after that, this shop will belong to me, and your robot girl Po Yu will also be handled by me. Is there any objection? The two of them were in a state of panic, and the two sides had to face each other. Zhang Laolai only thought about it for a moment and then he stopped hesitating. He didn't realize the hidden meaning in Sun Yan's words at all. He only needed to win the Weiyan Valley training match, the Greenfield Advanced match, and continue to rush towards the provincial competition step by step. If he could get a place in the provincial competition, he would at least have a chance to rescue Xu Ziliang. Now that Sun Yan has joined, if both of them have the opportunity to accept the awakening of the intelligent machine master, the probability is definitely greater than that of one person. He can ignore everything else, and he can do whatever it takes. He can give up the store and Po Yu. although these are very precious, but there is gain only when there is sacrifice. He gritted his teeth and said, no problem, as long as you are willing to teach me the skills, the store in Po Yu will be yours if you win it back. You think too much, I won't teach you the skills. Sun Yan poured cold water on Zhang Laolai's head again. Ah, Zhang Laolai was stunned, but Po Yu and Han Si have already specified that it must be me and Ling Feng who participate, you can't help me to compete. What do you want? I can't help you to compete. Then you. Zhang Laolai couldn't think of how Sun Yan would help. What do you care about me? Po Yu will lose anyway. Okay. Sun Yan was too lazy to say anything, and Zhang Laolai didn't dare to ask more, so he could only acquiesce for the time being. The next morning, Sun Yan and Xingqian first went to the dock to perform a leap for Lu Guang. In the afternoon, they happened to borrow Boss Shu's dock as a training ground. Zhang Laolai and Ling Feng had come here early to wait. Standing at the dock filled with containers, they looked timid, their eyes full of confusion and bewilderment about the future. What on earth was Sun Yan going to do? They watched Sun Yan and Xingqian, who was pushing a truck, slowly approaching in confusion. Xingqian pushed a truck of ice cream cones to Sun Yan and stuck out his tongue at Ling Feng. Zhang Laolai, you only have one task today. Sun Yan threw the training match map of Echo Valley into Zhang Laolai's arms. Arrange all the bends in the Echo Valley track according to the map of the Echo Valley track. Just arrange the bends. Yes. Sun Yan nodded. Don't you want me to drive Ling Feng? No. Sun Yan turned his head and looked at Ling Feng, who was standing there timidly and dared not speak. I will drive Ling Feng, I will help her get familiar with the track, and I will use an afternoon to make her a driver who can beat Poyue on the Echo Valley track with automatic driving. When Sun Yan said this, both Zhang Laolai and Ling Feng, who was bowing his head beside him, were stunned. Only Xingqian stood behind Sun Yan and clapped his hands lightly with admiration on his face. If someone else said this, Xingqian would eat it like a durian and then throw it out with fetal gas. But if this came from Sun Yan's mouth, it would be the truth. You are not kidding, are you? Zhang Laolai was dumbfounded and stammered. In one afternoon, let Ling Feng become a driver who can beat the Echo Valley track with automatic driving. Not just beat it, but beat Poyue. Sun Yan emphasized again. Zhang Laolai, I want to show you that Ling Feng, who has always been treated as a second-generation pilot and has been silently working but ignored by you, is actually not as bad as you think. Even without you, she can still be as good as Po Yu. Sun Yan wanted to say that if the driver is not good, don't blame the pilot. But there are many pilots in this world who pit the driver, and he can't be partial to one. After all, some pilots are not good because of the pilot, such as Zhang Kai in the previous version. Zhang Laolai was shocked by Sun Yan and was speechless. How can automatic driving be better than Po Yu with driver assistance? Han Si is a living person, not a vegetable. Besides, the attributes of Ling Feng and Po Yu are very different. Zhang Laolai hesitated to speak, wanting Sun Yan to think of other ways, but when he saw Sun Yan's eyes, he knew that Sun Yan was serious and he really intended to do it, and he didn't mean to play or joke at all. I want to try too. Ling Feng mustered up her courage, her pretty face flushed. I want to defeat Po Yu and Han Si. You have ambition, which is 10,000 times better than your cowardly driver. Sun Yan glanced at Zhang Laolai with disdain, and while praising Ling Feng, he did not forget to diss Zhang Laolai. What he said was indeed a fantasy, but Zhang Laolai did not even have the courage to believe it. But to be honest, Zhang Laolai must have some skills in training the robot girl. In less than 10 minutes, the first difficult corner of the Echo Valley track was set by Zhang Laolai. Sun Yan compared it with the map and estimated the scale, and found that it was almost the same. It turned out that he was a good apprentice to be Uncle Liang. Ling Feng, unfold it. Ling Feng was still a little timid. Sun Yan was the king of knocks, the fastest record holder. She read the newspaper yesterday and learned that Sun Yan was a genius driver with amazing track skills. She was afraid that her clumsy performance would make Sun Yan angry, but in Xingqian's encouraging eyes, she still plucked up the courage to unfold it. Ling Feng is a very beautiful streamlined model, with a sapphire blue color as a whole, and looks very much like a coupe version of Panamera. When Sun Yan sat in, he still asked his little Xingqian for instructions as usual. Xingqian waved his hand, indicating that it was no problem at all, and his genius master could be lent out at will. She was drinking a box of AD calcium high-energy nutrient solution happily, and there was a whole shopping cart at hand. Ling Feng, I will take you to experience every difficult curve in Echo Valley, and you need to remember my method of controlling you carefully. When you compete tomorrow, you will use muscle memory to defeat Po Yu, but you only need hands. Sun Yan's steady voice relieved the nervous Ling Feng a little. Okay, Master of Xingqian, I will work hard. Very good, let's start now. A villa in Tianyuan City. Han Si, who had just finished taking a shower, was leaning on the balcony railing, holding a phone in his hand with a respectful expression. Brother Yang, I have already got Zhang Jinbao's first machine girl Po Yu. Yesterday, I used Po Yu to lure him according to what you said, and he really took the bait. Tomorrow, when the Echo Valley track ends, that store will also be mine. A flamboyant and frivolous male voice came from the phone. Well done, after the Echo Valley training match, find a way to get Ling Feng away from him. Brother Yang, why didn't you include Ling Feng in the bet yesterday? Wouldn't that be a one-time solution? Haha, if you were a cat, would you bite the mouse to death immediately? Han Si shook his head. He felt that if he were a cat, he would eat a fat man in one bite. But he didn't dare to say this, so he could only laugh along. Regularly report Zhang Jinbao's situation to the prison, don't let Xu Ziliang have a good time. Yes, don't worry, I guarantee to complete the task. After the call on the other end hung up, Han Si put away the phone solemnly. Master, who are you calling? Po Yu came out of the shower room in pajamas, wiping her hair with a bath towel in her hand. It's a big guy. Han Si skillfully put his arm around Po Yu's waist, and the two leaned on the balcony to enjoy the scenery outside. Oh, there are big guys bigger than you. That's right, what am I? Brother Yang is an intelligent mechanical master. The training race of Echo Valley is held in a valley in Tianyuan City, a major racing city. The training track is benchmarked against the provincial advanced track, Silverstone Circuit. There is a widely circulated saying among racing drivers. If you can get good results in Echo Valley, then running Silverstone Circuit is almost like going home. Sun Yan and others arrived half a day in advance. At this moment, there was drizzle in the sky, but the cloudy sky was gradually turning clear. Maybe the rain would stop completely when the race started. The square at the entrance of the Echo Valley track was packed with people. There were more than 200 racers and pilots alone, plus a large number of spectators. The scene was not much worse than the Knox Rally. However, the Echo Valley track did not have a large screen live broadcast, so the spectators could take the cable car in advance to watch the various stages in front of the track. Now the people in the square were divided into two parts. The spectators were waiting in line to take the cable car. The racers and pilots drew the starting order. Just as Zhang Laolai and Ling Feng were waiting for the draw with nervous faces, Han Si and Po Yu came over hand in hand. Zhang Laolai, I heard that you had good skills in the past. You almost won 5 advanced games with Po Yu, but you were not lucky. You and Ling Feng have to work hard today. Han Si had a hypocritical smile on his face, and Po Yu glared at Zhang Laolai with his arms crossed, his eyes full of disgust. If it were in the past, Zhang Laolai would have a few words of battle. But today Zhang Laolai really didn't mean to do that. He has been numb since yesterday afternoon. He thought he was well informed. He had run many tracks with Xu Ziliang while waiting for the regular and advanced races, and had seen all kinds of girls and racers, but he had never seen such an outrageous existence as Sun Yan. In one afternoon, Sun Yan first helped Ling Feng get familiar with 36 difficult bends, and then 52 easy bends, and then kept training on this basis. He kept helping to place ice cream buckets until 4 in the morning. At that time, the cool breeze from the dock made the canvas on the container rustle. He saw Ling Feng pass a 3-hairpin bend easily and comfortably with a beautiful arc. And it was unmanned. Zhang Laolai. Han Si saw Zhang Laolai sitting there and ignoring him, and a hint of displeasure appeared in his eyes. Oh, what? Zhang Laolai came back to his senses and looked at Han Si and Poyue, nodding his head. Okay, thank you, you and Poyue should also work hard. Han Si and Poyue. This, Zhang Laolai is not stupid, right? Poyue whispered in Han Si's ear. Who knows, I guess so. Han Si smiled and pulled Poyue away. Zhang Laolai is indeed stupid. If he is not stupid, he would not agree to the conditions proposed by him and Poyue. Hey, Zhang Laolai, it's your turn to draw lots with Ling Fang. Sun Yan and Xingqian passed by Han Si and Poyue with the number 3 sign and walked to Zhang Laolai and Ling Fang. Xingqian held an AD calcium high-energy nutrient solution and rolled his eyes at Poyue when he passed by Poyue and snorted softly. Poyue was puzzled and finally remembered who Xingqian and Sun Yan were. I have seen it on TV and in newspapers. Sun Yan Xingqian, the king of Nox, is the current holder of the fastest Nox rally. It is quite normal to meet a real person here. After all, although she and Han Si are considered seniors, their level is not much higher than Sun Yan Xingqian, because their progress is similar and they are both stuck at the threshold of the provincial track. Compared with Sun Yan and Xingqian, they have more track experience. But what is the relationship between Sun Yan and Zhang Laolai? The two seem to know each other. But why didn't Zhang Laolai mention that he had such a powerful friend before? When Po Yu thought that Zhang Laolai was still hiding something from her, she felt unhappy. Ah, aren't you the king of Nox? Han Si also remembered who Sun Yan was. His eyes lit up and he immediately came up to him and said attentively, Mr. Sun Yan, I know you. I admire your racing skills very much. I hope to have a chance to learn from you. Sun Yan treated Han Si as heir, without even looking at him, and sat on the bench expressionlessly. Xingqian imitated Sun Yan's indifference, rolled her eyes, pouted her lips, and said in a baby voice, Who are you? Do we know you well? You're crazy. Han Si's smile froze, and his face turned red at a speed visible to the naked eye. In terms of fame, he is indeed not as famous as Sun Yan, the new king with the title of King of Nox. Comparability. But it's not that rude, right? Just ignore it, what the hell? Then, Sun Yan, Ling Feng and I will go to draw lots. Zhang Laolai heard his name being called on the radio, and quickly stood up, standing next to Sun Yan, bowing his head and bending his waist, like a follower. Yeah, seeing Sun Yan nod, Zhang Laolai dared to take Ling Feng away. Han Si knew that Sun Yan might know Zhang Laolai, so he didn't bother much and hurried away with Po Yu. He was even a little relieved in his heart. Fortunately Sun Yan and Xingqian drew the number 3 starting position. He and Po Yu were number 17, although they were also relatively forward, but with Sun Yan's skills and Xingqian's speed, they would definitely not meet, and they didn't have to worry about being targeted by Sun Yan and Xingqian on the track. Today he has only one goal: outrun Zhang Laolai and Ling Fang, and take away Zhang Laolai's store. This is not difficult at all. Han Si hypnotized himself for a while, because the panic caused by Zhang Laolai's acquaintance with Sun Yan, the new boss, finally subsided a lot. I'm Zhang Laolai, I'm here to draw lots. The staff at the window compared Zhang Laolai's ID card with Ling Feng's model, operated in front of the computer for a while, and took out a number plate for Zhang Laolai, which said 42, which was a very lucky number. The other drivers and the girls waiting for the draw were full of envy. Zhang Laolai took the number plate and did not leave immediately. He pursed his lips and said timidly, I apply for the girl to drive unmanned. What? The staff thought he had heard it wrong. The people around were even more confused. Why do you have to do something fancy when you draw such a good position? Isn't this a waste? I said, I want to apply for the girl to drive unmanned. Zhang Laolai took a deep breath and repeated it again. The staff stared at Zhang Laolai for a long time, and made sure that Zhang Laolai was not joking, then said with a strange expression, only when the driver is temporarily unable to play due to special circumstances can you apply for the automatic driving of the robot girl. You are not missing any limbs, you. Gaba. There was a burst of exclamations from the surroundings. The staff's eyes widened before he finished speaking. Zhang Laolai endured the severe pain, turned his head and looked pitifully at Ling Feng, who was full of apology. Then he raised his dislocated right arm to show the staff. Now, can I apply for unmanned driving of the robot girl now? The car was reconnected, but the driver was still standing. 10 minutes later, Zhang Laolai, who had been dislocated and reattached, walked into the queue of spectators waiting to board the cable car. This was Sun Yan and Xingqian's plan, to let Ling Feng remove Zhang Laolai's arm so that Ling Feng could obtain unmanned driving rights. No one has ever done this on the track. Although it seems to be against the rules, it is completely within the rules. After all, even if the arm is connected, Zhang Laolai can't drive the robot without a few days of rest. This matter has spread among racers, robot girls and spectators. After all, such a weird operation as Zhang Laolai is rare in life. Many people feel sorry for Ling Feng and think that Ling Feng is unlucky to have such a driver. Only Ling Feng felt extremely sorry. Although Zhang Laolai was not as good to her as Po Yu and did not give her any resources and training opportunities, it was Zhang Laolai who bought her back when she was eliminated, otherwise she would have chosen to go back to the training camp. He would occasionally take her to play training matches, and he did not modify her to win in the underground black market competition. So she actually had a great psychological struggle about removing Zhang Laolai's arm. Master, you can go with peace of mind. Ling Feng looked at the audience from afar, and Zhang Laolai, who was being watched like a rare animal, hunched over and embarrassed, secretly encouraged himself. Your arm will not be removed in vain, I will definitely defeat Po Yu and Han Si. Ling Feng retracted his gaze and subconsciously looked at the front of the team. There was a petite figure holding hands with Sun Yan. Xingchen seemed to have sensed something, and looked back and saw Ling Feng. She smiled and waved to Ling Feng, clenching her hands into small fists to cheer him up. Ling Feng, come on, fighting, fighting. Ling Feng's pretty face turned red, but she also mustered up the courage to clench her fists and responded to Xingchen. She looked at the tall figure next to Xingchen again. Although Sun Yan did not look back, the moment she looked at Sun Yan's back, the tension in her heart subsided unconsciously. I want you to remember the feeling of turning every corner and integrate it into your bones. Sun Yan's voice still echoed in her ears, giving her courage and strength. Your cornering attribute is very good. Although Po Yu is more experienced than you, her shallow experience is a piece of shit compared to the skills you have now. You now control the sword of the king. I control the sword of the king. Ling Feng said to herself. She thought the king here refers to the king of Nox. She didn't know that there were more meanings behind this word. But it was enough for her. I have the weapon to defeat Po Yu and Han Si. Ling Feng took a deep breath, her shyness and nervousness faded away, she seemed to be wearing a new coat, and a faint murderous intent appeared in her eyes. I apply to change the starting position. Ling Feng glanced at the number plate in his hand and raised his hand to the staff passing by. Zhang Laolai is crazy, Ling Feng is crazy too, right? Po Yu looked at Ling Feng, who was changed to the 18th starting position, with a confused face. She was so happy when she heard that Zhang Laolai was willing to cut off his arm to apply for unmanned driving. She thought Zhang Laolai must be escaping. As a result, before she and Han Si talked about this matter for a long time, Ling Feng changed the starting position to behind them. The Echo Valley track is 341 kilometers long and has a total of 132 bends. It is entirely possible that they will collide on the track. Ling Feng is not afraid at all. She drives alone, but there is no driver to assist her. Many judgments can only be made by herself. I don't know what they are thinking. Han Si glanced at Ling Feng behind them. The girl looked calm, as if she was well prepared. But it's impossible that she installed a diamond module, right? If Zhang Laolai had this money, he would not have failed to get a place in the previous 5 advanced competitions even if he was targeted by Brother Yang's people. This matter reveals a disturbing weirdness. But Han Si still can't see through it. He can only comfort himself that he is too sensitive. Master, don't think too much. Po Yu saw that Han Si's face was not good, and he was afraid that it would affect Han Si's condition, so he hurried to comfort him. Ling Feng's attributes except endurance are not as good as mine. Even if her track experience is similar to mine, she can't run faster than me. You just need to drive as usual. Han Si nodded and suppressed his anxiety in his heart. Ling Feng stared at the backs of Po Yu and Han Si, and his fists gradually clenched. Echo Valley track, 3 consecutive hairpins 500 meters from the finish line. Zhang Laolai, Xu Yuyang and Lu Guang are already in the audience seats. Although there is no big screen at the starting point of the Echo Valley track, there is a small screen near each difficult bend to see the pictures of other bends. At this moment, the screen is looping the preparation status of each driver and the pilot girl. The picture taken by the drone is quite stable, and the tension on the faces of the drivers and the pilot girls is clearly visible. Especially the racers and pilot girls in the front, especially number 1, number 2, number 4 and no. 5. The faces of these 4 players are quite wonderful. After all, no one wants the King of Knocks to start before or after them. The start time is 30 seconds apart, and it will be a fight if they meet on the road. And this, King of Knocks, has a precedent of knocking other pilot girls off the track. Lu Guang leaned close to Xu Yuyong's ear and smiled and whispered, "Master, they seem to be very afraid of Sun Yan and Xingqian." Xu Yuyong thought, how can they not be afraid? When he knew that Sun Yan had trained Ling Feng to be like this, he was also afraid. If he and Sun Yan started the race at the same position and he didn't know Sun Yan, his expression would not be much better than those drivers. Sun Yan and Xingqian will definitely be the first today. Xu Yuyong's eyes fell on Ling Feng, but the protagonist today is not Sun Yan and Xingqian, but Ling Feng. Yes, Lu Guang nodded. I really look forward to seeing her surpass Po Yu. She must be very happy, right? She watched Sun Yan and Xingqian flying and jumping a few more times in the past 2 days, and the fear in her heart has been overcome a lot. Now she can walk a few steps, and now she has a lot more smiles on her face when she talks. Zhang Laolai was sitting behind Xu Yuyong and Lu Guang. When he heard what they said, his eyes fell on Ling Feng and his eyes were full of complexity. Compared with Po Yu, he was indeed not good enough to Ling Feng, and he didn't like Ling Feng's attributes. When Ling Feng was bought back, it was just because he felt sorry for him, and not modifying was the bottom line for drivers that Xu Ziliang had always taught. Now Po Yu has abandoned him, but Ling Feng, whom he despised the most, is willing to stand up for him. He felt mixed emotions at the moment. In a corner of the audience, Zidian focused his attention on Sun Yan and Xing Chen. He looked at Ling Feng for a long time before noticing him. An unmanned mecha girl. I heard from Boss Xu that she was specially trained by Sun Yan. She pursed her lips, clenched her hands into fists, and felt inexplicably excited, with a strong hope. She hoped that Ling Feng would defeat Po Yu and become an unmanned mecha girl. Just like she hoped that she could survive on her own without a driver, and that she would be able to return to the track one day. Although this hope was very slim. Please let me see, Zidian murmured to himself with trembling lips. After the darkness, will there really be dawn? Please prepare for the start, all racers and mecha girls. The Echo Valley training match is about to begin. Please prepare the number 1 racer and the girl to start the race. Countdown 30 seconds. Xingqian. Yeah, first place is up to you. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.